Hi, everybody. Hello and welcome to Booked On. Booked On, the show where we talk about books we love. And I'm so happy that we have the fantastic JCM Berne, Joe Byrne, the writer of the Hybrid Helix series. Oops, one second. Yes, we've made it live to YouTube. So we're going live on YouTube. We're going live on my Facebook page, and hopefully we're going live on my X account as well. So, but I have to check it because apparently there's been some problems streaming on X. Um, yeah, I don't see the X being live. Let me just see. Yeah, I think we are
Technical
live on X.
difficulties.
No, we're live on X. We're live on X.
Oh, good.
Cool.
Excellent.
We're live
Excellent.
on
Very
X.
cool. Very good. Thank you so much for having me, Shakib. It's a great pleasure.
No, absolutely. I was just telling you that one of the bittersweet problems of being an advanced reader is that you have to wait till the world catches up. So I've been waiting to have you on the show and talk about the show for a long time now, talk about the book for a long time now, but finally we
Yeah.
get to do it. And interestingly, today is 21st February in Dhaka. In America, it's still 20th February. So in Dhaka, it's
Yes.
21st February. And the importance of this date is this is the
This one.
International Mother Language Day, which originated from Bangladesh. Because way back in
Oh,
1952, when we were under the Pakistani regime,
right.
um, they wanted the mother language to be the official language to be Urdu, which is what they
Right.
speak in. And there was a big movement in Bangladesh saying that no, we have a huge population. In fact, our population was always more than the Pakistani population, and we're like the biggest population speaks in Bangla. So no way can
Yeah.
Urdu be the state language. So there was a big fight. A lot of people died, gave their lives,
Oh,
and finally the Pakistani regime is like, okay, enough. You can speak in Bangla. So from that, this day has been recognized by the UN as International Mother Language Day to respect all languages.
oh,
And not only
that's
that,
great.
because of this specific date, 21st February, which is, of course, we honor our martyrs and we celebrate the language, because of this, there's
Yeah.
a month-long book fair, which happens mainly in the university. There's this place called Dhaka University. It's very famous in Bangladesh. So
Sure.
in Dhaka University, there's this thing called Bangla Academy. So forget it. So basically, around Dhaka University, you have the biggest book fair in Bangladesh. So for the
Wow.
last like 30 years, 40 years, that fair used to be just in that place. But in the last 5 years, these book fairs have sprung up all over the nation. So now in the month of
Really?
February, you have these book fairs all over the nation. So February is now the month of books, basically in
That's
Bangladesh.
fantastic.
And I think it's brilliant that on this
That
day,
is brilliant. That's
we are
great.
talking about your book.
Talking about
And
books.
you're not somebody completely removed from Bangladeshi culture because, as
No.
people who have watched our show know, that Joe is
Yeah.
married to a
Yeah.
Bangladeshi Sileti,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Salati.
who's a
Yeah.
doctor.
Yeah.
So fantastic.
Yes.
I'm still not sure if we're streaming live on X or not. It shows I'm streaming live. Let me just see if I'm streaming live or not.
We're definitely on YouTube. And
Yeah,
there's
we are
Usman in
on
the
YouTube.
comments.
It shows I'm live, but let me just try it once again. Let me just try it once again. Share, post this,
Yeah. Ooh,
post.
I gotta mute this. No, I see it. I see it on
Yeah,
X.
yeah.
It's
All right,
streaming.
cool. So I think we are live everywhere. Let me just
Nice.
check my profile. Am I live on my profile? Yes, we are.
I
We're
never
live
wa-
everywhere.
Yeah,
We're
we're
live
live.
everywhere, and my co-host Kaisar will join us. He's in fact already here. So let me just bring him
Oh,
in.
fantastic. Kaiser, how you
Hello.
doing?
Hi, Joe. How are you?
Hi, good. Ramadan Kareem to both of you,
Oh, yes,
I
same to
guess.
you. Same to
Yeah.
you. I have to share, first of all, Joe. Number one, I'm a huge fan.
Oh, thank
Number
you.
two, I just finished the
Honor.
second book last night. I
Okay.
finished the second book last night, so it's fresh on my mind. And thirdly, I just want to apologize for something. Like, both of you have a really cool background. Like, both of you have a shelf. I have a door. So, like, I wanted to just apologize in
Oh,
advance for that. So I have a few anime posters, so that's the best I could do.
that's
So
good.
I'm finally
Oh,
glad to be here. And Joe, I have so many questions for you today.
well, I
And
like
as
answering questions.
Shakib,
I didn't have a shelf. These shelves are relatively new. I moved to this house a year and a half ago. Before that, I had a blank wall. But
Hmm.
when I moved to this house, I was like, I need a shelf with books on it so I can do author interviews and look like I actually have books. For
I
years,
mean,
they were all in boxes.
even if it was a blank wall, it's cool
Yeah,
because it's like a blank canvas. Like my door just
there you
opens
go.
and closes. That's the best I can do. So that's still the worst.
It's good. It's good.
So let's dive right into it, Joe. First, let me bring up the appropriate screen. Um, there we go. Prayer of Angels, Joe.
Great
This
angels.
is turn. Is it turn 9 or turn 8? I'm not good with
That is
numbers.
turn 8. That is turn 8.
Turn,
I'm writing
yeah.
turn 9 now. It should come out. It'll come out this year. I don't know exactly when. I had some delays. Everything's fine. I know the story. I just have to actually write it. I got delayed because I've been I'm getting audiobooks recorded.
Yeah.
Wayne
Wow.
Farrell. So he did the second book's done. It's out on Audible. He just finished the recording Blood Reunion. He literally uploaded the files to a shared folder today. So I've been, I can't do both. I can't both edit because editing the audio files takes time. I have to listen to
Yep.
the whole thing,
Yep.
read along, and it's like a skill set. My brain's not used to it, like having to listen and read and then pause and nope, you switch two words or whatever the mistakes are. So I can't write. Like I don't have time for that and my job and.
Mm.
So I had to pause the work on Mortality Gauntlet, but I'll get there. But I know the story, so like it's just everything else. Once I have the story down, the writing is just takes time and
Yeah,
energy.
Joe, I think what you should do is you should buy lottery tickets every 2 weeks. They're very cheap. And just in case you win, what's the big deal? You lose a few dollars, but the win is big, so that you
Yeah.
can you can just write all the time, because this is one of my favorite series ever,
Oh,
and
thank
I'm
you.
talking Lord of the Rings, I'm talking Dresden Files, I'm
Uh,
talking Harry Potter, I'm talking everything. So
very
this is one
kind.
of my favorite series of all time, the Hybrid Helix series. And Joe, if
Yeah.
you for people who don't know, like, can you pitch the Hybrid Helix series for them, like what it's all about?
A hard time with this. Yeah. So it's Rohan is a former soldier, a former weapon of mass destruction for an evil empire, and he has retired, and he has trying to live a quiet life, trying to sort of collect himself, and of course he gets embroiled in pulled back into problems, and in order to try to in order to try to protect his friends, is he going to return back into the monster that he was, is the ongoing question, or find another way. And of course he finds another way, and of course things will always happen that bring him, because otherwise there'd be no book, right?
Yeah.
If there were no if things didn't keep pulling him back, there'd be no more books. But that's the nutshell. So it's a little bit of, I think there's some humor in it. There's a good amount of action. It's superhero style action, space opera. Most of the storylines take place on other planets, sort of a kind of like the Marvel universe, where there are things happening on an Earth that's very much like present day Earth, but sometimes they travel into space and meet aliens on spaceships, like the Kree or whatever. It's the same kind of thing. And I have great covers because I paid Christmas to make great covers. I love those, except for Suppression of Powers. That was J. Caleb Designs. I had one book where I was like feeling short on cash, so I, and Chris has a lot of other responsibilities. Chris works for Chris doesn't just do indie covers. He works for traditional publishers. So when there's he was working on. I think he was doing the art for the Dune special editions, and he was like really just like taking up a lot of his time. And I was like, dude, you do that. That's more important. Like, you go work on those. I'm not gonna try to rush you off that so you can do my cover. So anyway, and it's
Yeah,
planned to
well,
be a very long series. I have a storyline in mind. I know where it's going. I know how I want it to sort of end. I know what I want to happen roughly, not like book by book, but generally speaking. So we're looking at something like over 20 books. Is the plan.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay.
So book 9 wraps up a storyline that really started in book 4. But it's just the beginning, and you see that in Prey of Angels. I sort of lay some more seeds for more of the things that'll happen in the teens, and I have a pretty solid idea of what's happening in 10, 11, and 12. Or yeah, I have at least for now. I mean, I always sometimes I get an idea for a book, and then by the time I get to that book, I don't do that. Like it's all in notepads of mine, right? No one else has seen it, so I'm allowed to
Mhm.
to change my mind. Anyway, so that's
Yeah,
that's the hybrid helix in a nutshell.
so Joe is being very, very like basically it's very hard to describe an entire series or a concept in just a few words. So
Yeah,
let me just add to what Joe is saying. The reason why I
please.
love this series is not just because it has roots in sci-fi and superhero lore, but also because Joe writes very, very relatable characters. They're a lot of fun to be with, and what at this point in my time, I'm not a big fan of bashing your way through walls and monsters and 10 pages of action. Is I just find it boring. So I like the fact that the action in this series is very to the point. There's never any gratuitous violence. The action has an emotional weight, which always makes it better. Which is why I love the Sander launch, or I think that's what it's called, the Sander launch. The big epic climaxes in Brandon Sanderson books.
Yeah.
Even in Dresden Files, I kind of skip a few pages towards the end because I'm like, yes, there's a lot of fighting going on. I get it. But here, just like in Dresden
Battlegrounds was
Files,
so bad.
yeah, exactly. This
It
is
just kept
way too
going. You're
much.
like, ah,
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly, exactly. So here, what you do is, and this is something I love. You spend time with characters you love. So I always tell
Mm.
Joe when
yeah.
a new Hybrid Helix book comes out, I feel like I'm coming home to my friends and family. Basically Rohan lives in this sentient space station called Wistful, and that's where he lives. That's where he operates. That's where a lot of people live. So we enter his world, and we spend some time with them. And in fact, that's the same feeling I get when I read Dresden Files, when I used to read Harry Potter. Going back to the place that you're
Mm.
comfortable. So I love this book because of the familiarity with my life, which sounds strange because I'm not a superhero living in a space station, but thematically there's a lot of
Yeah.
similarities. I love the fact that this is a very different coming of age story of somebody is in his mid 30s by this point,
Yeah.
which is something that somebody people like us who are on the wrong side of 30 basically, or 40, 45, you know so people like us, we have this awakening, a second coming of age, second awakening, like what am I doing with my life. Like I would say, Joe, for you to decide that, you know what, instead of just critiquing other people and pointing out what they're doing wrong, I'm going to do it myself, as Thanos said in one of the Marvel films. So I think that was also a reawakening for you, right? So that's happened to me. That's happened to Kaiser, even though he's much younger than us. He's in his late 30s. So those themes really resonate. I just want to live a quiet life, but you get pulled back in. These are things that happen every day. I just want to go
Yeah.
home and relax, but something happens. So
Yeah.
thematically, I think for people who've experienced life a bit, this series has a lot more value. If you're a young one, there's a lot of action, there's a lot of quips, there's a lot of great moments. Uh, but I would say the world that you've created, Joe, this beautiful, beautiful world of good and evil, but it's much more than that. It's very layered. It's not somebody is not evil just because. Even though you have, I think, this character called Doctor Cthulhu or something, Cthulhu,
Oh,
or,
Dr.
or
Kraken.
Dr. Kraken, right?
Dr.
Dr.
Kraken.
Kraken, like
Yeah.
he's just evil. So he's like a comic element, but the
Yeah.
others, they have the layers. The good guys have the layers.
Yeah.
The bad guys have the layers. So this is a wonderful, wonderful world, and I,
Thank
I,
you.
I inhale your books when they come out. I don't read them. I just inhale. Before I know it, it's done. It's finished. I've digested it, and I can't wait to talk about it. And
Yeah.
Prayer of Angels. If we go back to Prayer of Angels, this is, I think, another brilliant edition, brilliant
Oh, thank you.
installment in the series. So if we start, Kaiser will go to your questions later. First, I want to talk about Prayer of Angels. Without giving anything away, Prayer of Angels is exactly what you're talking about, Joe. That you have a loose formation of or idea about 20 plus books that you want to write. So before Prayer of Angels, I was like, okay, how is he gonna take this all the way to 23? Unless it's an episodic thing, every episode something happens,
Monster
like
of the
Star
week,
Trek.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Like well done
Yeah.
Monster of the Week episodes. Unless it's that, how is he gonna pull off 20 plus books? I think that question, one of the first hints towards the answer to that, is in this book. But we're gonna get there. The first thing I want to talk about is Rohan is a good guy. Rohan is trying to atone for his past behavior. Rohan knows he's not perfect. He's trying to be nice. He before James Gunn, he's the one who said kindness is a new punk rock. So, and we're gonna get there as well. So, but the opening of Prey of Angels is very, very grim. Something very, I'm not gonna say what happens, but something happens which is as grim as it gets. I don't think it gets grimmer than that. I don't think it gets darker than that. And I've written about it in my review that when you wrote it in such a way, Joe, that after that thing occurred, after that event occurred, I wasn't sure if that had really happened or not. Because I don't know if you did that intentionally or not. I was not 100% sure. I was like, so did that really happen or it didn't happen? And then
You thought it was gonna
yeah,
be a switch, and someone instead of
yeah,
yeah, they were, oh no, they're still alive. It was
yeah,
all a
yeah.
trick. Oh no, no,
Yeah,
no,
so
no,
so
no,
I
no,
was
no.
not sure, but then when he started playing on Rohan's PTSD, that's when I
Yeah.
was like, okay, so that really
Oh
happened.
no,
So
no, no, that really happened. Yeah, I'll tell you
yeah,
right
yeah, yeah.
now, that was not a that
So
was not
I
a
just want to
you
know,
know.
so why did you decide to open the story in such a grim, stark, grim, a straightforward thing, you know? Like
There's
there's
a
no duality here. Like Rohan did something horrible. We're not going to talk about what he did, but he did it, right? So what was
horrible,
your
but
decision?
my intent was horrible but necessary.
Yes,
He had to
yes,
for the greater
yes,
good, that he was put in a position where this had to be done. Then
yes.
I always so there's this I feel like there's this theme, or this I don't want to say it's exactly political, but in society, people talk about how, like, oh, if you're kind, you can't be strong, or people who are nice or who are compassionate can't go and do the hard things, and that you have to be a hard person. You have to get rid of your compassion in order to be able to be strong. And I always think of the of the counterexample of what I call the dad putting down the rabid dog energy. Right? Imagine you're in a family and your dog gets rabies. There's no cure. You've got to kill the dog, and you're on like a and the father of the family gets out the gun, takes the dog out back, and shoots the dog. And is it a it's a horrible thing to have to do, right? But like, the fact that you're compassionate and you love the dog doesn't mean you can't shoot the dog, right? It means that you try everything you can to not shoot the dog, but when the time comes to shoot the dog, you shoot the dog. Or the wounded tiger in the village, right? Wounded tigers attacking people outside the village, you go, you cut. There was there's another one. Some apocryphal story about, like, a very advanced sage. What do you do when there's a wounded, a pacifist? What if there's a wounded tiger? And it's like, well, you put down the tiger, right? You can be a pacifist, but you don't let the tiger just like eat the people in the village either. And I really wanted to get that across, that part of Rohan's thing is that he is going to try very hard to do the right thing, but he is not to the point where he's not willing to do what needs to be done. He's not weak. He is compassionate, and that's a strength. It's not a weakness. It's not a deficit. And I tried to lay out this thing where people are, oh, you're weak, so you won't do this thing that needs to happen, so we're going to win. He's like, you don't get it. And he doesn't, and again, he has to suffer, because if you're going to do a horrible thing, even if you needed to, I mean, hopefully the father who kills the dog, that the rabid dog, hopefully he should suffer. He should feel bad about it somewhat. Not that it breaks him and he's shattered and he's spending the rest of his life crying every day. I don't mean that, but he's going to feel something, because that's what compassion does. You feel some regret, and Rohan's always going to feel regrets, but he's willing to do the things, and he's now trying to set the stage that mentally he's in a place where he can take care of because the whole series, our progression is he becomes more active. And in Wistful Ascending, Kaiser, you read it. He's trying to not do much. He's just lay low, keep his head down. He doesn't want to be involved. And over the course of the series, I'm giving things away, but very loosely, he evolves to a point where he's like, okay, if I want the world to be a better place, I'm going to have to make it better myself. And that's the transformation that the series is about. Is Rohan goes from, I just want to lay low, to I'm going to fix things, and I'm going to fix things in a very big way, and you're going to see some very big fixings happen by book 20. Right? But I want it to be earned. I mean, I want it to be earned in a way you couldn't do it in one book. you're going to feel it. You're going to feel this many thousand, hundreds of thousands of words as he gets there, as he's pushed and pulled, like to where he starts becoming more active. Like in Prayer of Angels, he's pretty active. In the next book, he's even more active.
Mm.
And that was a deliberate sort of gentle shift. So he's reacting, he's always making mistakes, he's always trying to make up for them. To me, that's life, right? It's about making
Yeah.
mistakes and then trying to fix them, trying to do your best. And you screw up sometimes. I tell this to my son all the time. Like he does something bad, I'm like, okay, you did something wrong, get back on the horse. Like it's tomorrow, try again. You don't ever become like a perfect person where now you never make a mistake again. That's not life, right? You become someone who's you're constantly trying, you're constantly becoming what you're going to be. It's never done, it's never finished. So I got to say, when I thought of that scene and how to and to frame the book with the beginning of the book with it, I remember I was working out of my basement and I had the idea and I'm like, that's it. That's absolutely how to start the book. Yeah, I love that.
No,
It was
so
very,
I'm
really,
really happy. I'm really happy
yeah,
that's the way it started, because when it started with Hyperion attacking a base and Rohan going there
yeah,
to defend them, I was like, oh no, not another Tom and Jerry sequence where Hyperion comes, they fight, and he leaves. So I was like kind of shaky when I started. I was like, oh no, Joe, what are you doing? And then you give me that ending to the chapter, to that sequence. I was like, okay, that was good. That was really good. You really turned the tables on me. Yeah, so
yeah,
I think absolutely, I wanted to hear your philosophy where, just because you're
yeah,
being kind doesn't mean you're an idiot. Because in
yes,
Bangladesh,
yeah,
one of the things that people here do is, if you're kind to someone, they think you're stupid. They don't understand
oh,
you're just being nice. They confuse kindness with idiocy, because they're not kind themselves. They think that you must be dumb because you're being nice. So Rohan basically spits on the face of that by doing the thing that needs to be done at the beginning of the book. And I thought that was a very, very nice, I think, signal that we're not in Kansas anymore. Kansas anymore. Things are going things are going south fast. So that was absolutely
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
I love
Thank
the
you,
fact that you
thank you.
bring back a lot of recurring characters. We get to see
Oh
List
yeah,
and so many others. I
it's
love
so
this
hard.
little.
It, who to, because it's so many people now. I can't put them all in every book and give them all
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
pages. It's just aren't enough pages. You
yeah,
can't do all the fan service. I just realized like Ursula has hardly any page time because
yeah,
I'm reading Blood Reunion for the audio, right? And I'm like,
yeah,
oh, she had a
yeah,
lot of page time in Blood
yeah,
Reunion, and you see her after that, but not a lot. She's never like a
yeah,
big part of the book. But what are you going to do? This book had a lot of Aang in it. Prey of Angels. I was really happy with that. That wasn't part of the original plan, but then I realized having Aang kind of with him for the whole thing just worked. It made
yeah.
things. I felt it tied things together in a smart way. Um, but sometimes I go books where Aang doesn't do much, and then people get angry at me. The Ursins don't make an appearance, people get mad. Everyone loves them. I don't know why, but I'll take it. It's a
No,
good
it
thing.
was it was fantastic. It was good to see Aang
Thank
and
you.
Rohan team up and go on an
Yeah,
adventure. And I loved what you did, and I love seeing Spiral and everybody else,
yeah,
and they go to these mystical mountains and everything. So,
yeah,
again,
yeah.
you this is something you've been doing, I think, for the last few books. I'm not sure if this is something you were doing in the first three, four books, but in the last few books, you always end with this philosophical slap, or you reframe the adventure with like one dialogue or one sentence. That's something I've been noticing for the last. I think I've been noticing since Eyes of Empire. So I don't know if that has been happening before that or since Eyes of Empire. But what you've been doing is you reframe a lot of the story with just one realization from Rohan. Like he realizes
Yeah,
something,
yeah, yeah,
and for me that is much more satisfying than a big climactic battle. So
yeah.
this is another question I have for you. Like, if I were to say what's the biggest difference between, say, Dresden Files and Hybrid Helix, I would say that you don't end with big, big climactic battles like the Dresden Files. There's always this enormous file, or if I'm talking about Brandon Sanderson, there's this climactic battle at the end. You have a battle, you have stakes, there's all there, but especially in the last few books, you go more towards, yeah, there are stakes, there is a battle, of course, Rohan's gonna come out on top. He's the protagonist. But then you reframe the story with like one sentence. Is this something
Yeah.
you're doing consciously, or
Yeah.
is this something that you grew into?
I mean, I did it a little bit early on. I just got better at it, I think, over time. You write a bunch of books, you hopefully get better at things. And I love the reframings at the end and how Because my goal was always to have, because you have this guy who's very good at, he's very strong, he's very good at punching things, and I didn't want to write a series of books where he just punches all the enemies until they fall over, and that's every book, and there's an enemy comes by and he punches them a lot and they fall down. So like even in Wistful Ascending, right, like in the end he doesn't win by punching, he wins by not punching, right? Like that's very deliberate, right? So that, to me, that was a little bit of a reframing. I think I went away from it somewhat. Even in Return of the Griffin, there's a little bit, right? He doesn't just punch the sharks, right? Let's turn it around. Let's save them instead. So there was a little bit of that, and then I just got to a point where I realized that I was more satisfied the more of that I layered in there. So by the time I got to Eyes of Empire, I was really enjoying that, having multiple layers of twists and reframings happening at the end, and then I definitely did it more in Shield of the Mothership, and I definitely did it more in Prey of Angels. I did a little bit less. So it is something I work for. You know, every book has to advance the overall plot. Every book has to have a certain amount of action. Every book has to have a certain amount of like character growth. Ron has to make mistakes. Like there's a lot of things to pack in there. Not every book is going to have everything in it completely satisfactory way. You just have to juggle. But I love those reframings. And it's always about trying to make Rohan smart. Like he's got to not just I'm stronger so I win, because that's not super satisfying. It's having him be smart and having him rethink things and having him understand his way. It's a little bit like Babylon 5. I don't know if you watch Babylon 5, but there's this.
I just saw the first season.
Okay, season 4, they win the day by understanding the enemy, not by defeating them in battle. That's the summary for the whole series. So I love that, right?
No, but that's a very recurring theme in Star Trek, like the good Star Trek, not the recent Star Trek.
Yeah. So, and that's Rohan's goal.
So I think you did that fantastically in Prey of Angels. I love the fact that when he goes back to somewhere, we won't say where, at the end of the book, when everything is done, everything's finished, and you think, okay, so this book is done. And then there's a conversation, and that I loved it, because especially if you're a superhero fan, we love dialogues like that. So it's just because I think I remember I think the last episode of Arrow, I think it was a crisis episode, and Arrow really, like, it started out well and then it became really sloppy. But even then, there's a scene where they're basically, Green Arrow is trying to evacuate the population from a planet that's being destroyed, and somebody comes and tells him it's time to leave. We have to go now. And then Green Arrow says that, have we evacuated everyone? Then the guy says no, and then Green Arrow says that it's not time to leave. So if you're a superhero fan, these kind of dialogues really hit you hard, right? So I think you did one of those best dialogues at the end of Prey of Angels. I'll always remember that. I will always remember that scene for the rest of my life. It was amazing. So there are many reasons why Prey of Angels is absolutely a banger of a book. Well, one of the most important reasons is my name is in the book as well. So how can this not be one of the best? So thank you, Joe, for making me a legend in my own lifetime by putting me in the acknowledgement or thanks section at the beginning of the book. I've marked it out there for your convenience, viewers. So thank you so much, Joe. This is absolutely brilliant. Without doing anything, I end up being in one of the adventures of Rohan.
You did a lot, but that group of people are the people who have done the most for promoting my books. I can tell you what every single one of those people has done in terms of putting videos together or tweeting things, or when you certainly earned more than earned a spot on that list. So because that's look, this is why I do it, right? I do it so that I can have these engagements, so I can have these. If I don't have reader, like, this is too much work to write just for me. And if I was the only person I would love to say, oh, I could write these stories just for myself, but I probably wouldn't, right? There's a lot of work. It's really hard, right? But it's these interactions and having these people read it and then tell me, and not just say like, oh, I liked your book. Like, that's great. I love when people say that, but having like insights and picking out things and showing that they really understood what the themes that I was trying to convey. That's why I'm doing it at this point, really. I mean, I'd like to make money and whatever, but like, even if that never happens, I'm very happy with what's going on, and you're a huge part of how that all happened. So, as were the other people on the list. I can tell you, it's a funny list. I look through and I'm like, yep, I can what each of those people did along the way to sort of bring me an audience. Because in 2021, 18 people had read this book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I didn't have an audience. I didn't have. A couple of my high school friends had read it and left reviews on Goodreads. Like that's great. Like that's wonderful. But like I didn't have anything beyond that scope. And then and then this whole thing started.
Yeah,
So
but thank you so much.
thank
I'm
you.
glad you feel that
No,
way.
thank
It's
you.
it's a pleasure to help out any way I can because we
Yeah,
absolutely love your books. I love your books.
thank
So
you.
I will now leave the stage to Kaiser because I've hogged your time. Kaiser, launch yourself at Joe. Go.
Yes, yes. So, Joe, I only finished the second book, so I have a lot to catch
Sure,
up,
sure.
which is good in a way, because I look forward to reading all your books. But I have been reading
Thank you.
up
I
on
hope you
you,
enjoy.
and
Oh,
thank you. I have been reading up on you, and you're a daytime coder. You have a full time job, and you write at night. But that's like a lot of pressure. So I just wanted to know,
it
number
is.
one, how do you manage the time? Because these are just quality writing. It's not just you're rushing into it. When I read through it, I really enjoy it. And secondly,
Thank you.
why do it in the first place? Like, what motivates you? Why? Because writing 8 books while having a full time job is not easy. So why take the trouble?
Well, I work from home. So even if I work, my 9-hour day, I still have time before and after my job because I don't have a commute. So that
Okay.
helps a lot. And my job is fairly demanding, but it's also not physical. It's not like I'm digging ditches where at the end of the day I'm just exhausted and I just want to sit on a couch, right? Because
Mhm,
I've had physical jobs before a long time ago, but I've done it. So it
mhm,
helps that my job isn't. And then okay, so I'm going to sound arrogant when I say why do I do it? I think part of it is this. I mean, this is okay. So my job is very sort of straightforward, and I don't know that it's. We sell financial data, right? Like bond
mhm,
evaluations. Like it's not. It doesn't speak to my soul, right? There's no like I was a philosopher, right? I was a philosophy major. I almost got a PhD in philosophy, right? Ethics, this whole thing. Culture. This is what intrigues me. It's not part of my day job. So in order to express that, in order to express like my love of story and my love of action of all the kind of all the elements you see in the book, like there's no other way for me to express it. I mean, no, there may be other ways, but this was my way. And I feel
mhm,
like I've written books on and off for, since the last century. Never
mhm.
published anything else. I don't know if they were any good, but I always felt I was probably better at writing than at other things. I'm better at writing than I am at anything else. And
Okay.
so once I started writing Wistful Ascending, I just made time. And I'm always happiest when I'm planning the next book or editing the last book or something. But it's I honestly, it's how I express myself. I feel like it's like any artist, like you talk to an artist like this is what they live for. It's the painting or the sculpture or whatever. I feel exactly like that. This is my this is like something I can leave behind for my kids. This is my legacy. Right? Because my legacy
Mhm.
isn't going to be, I wrote a bunch of software apps that load, bond evaluations into a database very efficiently. Like, I mean, it's useful work, and like I get paid for it, and that's great. But no one cares. Like, no one outside my job is ever going to care.
Mhm.
But this is meaningful in a different way. I don't know. That's my
No,
answer.
that makes sense. That makes sense. And you have been getting into and out of writing like since you started. You took a break for a long time, and then finally you got to sit down with the first book of Hybrid Helix. So, for
Yeah.
young and aspiring writers out there who keep on planning that they will start writing something, but they're not getting the inspiration, or they don't feel confident enough to write something, do you have any advice for them that what would make them a good writer to get their Hybrid Helix on the page?
I think just my first answer is not everyone should be a writer, right? If you're not
Mhm,
into someone is saying like, "Oh, I want to be a writer, but I'm not really inspired to write anything." Well, then don't, do something else, make music, make art, just consume, read, make re- make have a channel of your reviews. I mean, I don't know, do something, but not everyone has to be a writer, you know. So I know people who like, I want to be a writer, but I don't really have any ideas for a story. And I'm like, well, then you shouldn't, don't do that, right? Just do something else, because you should write books when the ideas are bursting out of you, and you can't help that, you can't contain them. Because I
Mm.
mean, my whole you know, adult life, I've been filling notebooks with like outlines and plans for stories, and I didn't follow through. So if you're doing that, if you're having all these ideas for stories and you're filling notebooks with outlines and I have a cool idea like just the other day I had an idea for a horror story. Shakib read it, right? I had this idea and I was like, oh, I love this idea. I came up with a whole bunch of ideas, wrote them in a notebook. I wrote the story in a day, not even like an afternoon. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like, that happens to me all the time. If that's happening to you all the time, then write them. And then once you write them, you really need peers to read them, because what's going to happen is you write like a draft, and it's almost always terrible, your first draft, unless you're, you know, your first book, right? It's not, because you have this idea in your head and it doesn't get onto the page. So when you read your own stuff, you're remembering the cool stuff in your head,
Yep.
but it's not
Mm-hmm.
actually in the text anymore, right? You think it is, but it's just reminding you of the cool stuff that was there, right? Like some description, like, oh, that's a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful scene, because you're remembering what you imagined, but the words you wrote don't actually evoke that scene in anyone else's mind, right? So
Mm.
you got to have peers who like go through and they go, you know what, this doesn't actually show me, explain anything to me, and then you go, oh, and you have to learn to sort of see what other people see when they read your stuff, when they don't have access to your imagination. And that just takes time and practice. And friends who are willing to go through and go, dude, this made no sense. Right. So I've had writers groups and friends who will go through, and like a small number of people who give me a lot of good feedback. Because like Shakib, you read Prey of Angels. It was pretty much done. Maybe I fixed a
Yeah.
typo or two after that version, but there's an earlier version that goes to other friends of mine, and they'll say, like, you know, they'll go through like, oh, chapter 13, like, you know, this character, I don't know why they did the thing they did, right?
Mm.
And because I'm like, I know, but I didn't get it on the page.
Joe, it happened
Mm.
with you and me. There was something a character does
And Shield of the
in Shield
Mothership
of the Mothership,
at
and I
the
was
end.
like,
Yep.
Joe, it's not making sense. Why would this character do this?
Useful.
And then you
Yeah.
literally changed one dialogue, like
Yeah. Yeah.
you added like two words, I think, and
Because
it
I
framed
knew
everything
why
perfectly.
I knew why she did what she did, right?
Yeah,
Because I know the characters, but I didn't get it on the page. So you're like, you
yeah,
didn't get it because it wasn't there.
yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I just need to like point you at what I know is going on in this character's like interior, right? And so I need friends who will but you know, but it's also a skill you learn, right? I'm much better at this than I was when I wrote Wistful Ascending, right? Like now I can get much closer to the final product because it's practice. You're reading, it's almost like the reader is another character, and you're reading the book and you're imagining how this other character is understanding what the text says, and that you can imagine how they get confused at a certain point, and you're like, okay, I've got to explain more, or I've got to explain less, right? Or I've got to make something more, you know, more or less clear. You know, how do you get the emotional impact? I've got to shorten this part because it takes too long, whatever. And it just takes practice and books. And so what would I, yeah. So peers who are willing to rip apart your stuff is huge. It's huge.
Mm.
It's very, and you know, we used to do it on a Discord. We had a Discord, and we had a rule. You would put, I'll give you a great suggestion for a budding writer. Don't try to write a novel and get your friends to critique it. Write a chapter and get your friends to critique it.
Okay.
Because if you give someone 100,000 words and say, hey, tell me what you think of this, they're going to find 3 to 5 things wrong with it. And they're going to say, oh, you know, 3 to 5 things. But if you give them one chapter, 2,500 words, 3,000 words, they're also going to find 3 to 5 things wrong with it. And you give them the next chapter and they'll find another 3 to 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get much better feedback, and your friend's going to be much more willing to read a chapter than here's a book slam, you know, on their desk, right? So for budding writer, huge, and trade, right? Because this is something I see all the time. Like, who wants to read my book? No.
Mm.
First, offer who has something that they've written that I can critique. I'll read your first 3 chapters of your book, and I'll give you a bunch of notes. And then 2 weeks later, hey, can you read the first 2 chapters of my book and give me a bunch of notes? Trade off, help first. And then people will know, oh, this isn't one way. You're looking for back and forth. And that's really helpful. So that's everything I know about writing. But
That's
No,
that's
nice.
and,
actually
and
that's actually good stuff.
no, that's really good stuff, Joe, and it goes beyond writing as well because the
Yeah,
themes
oh
of
yeah,
what you're saying, the philosophy of what you're saying is
yes,
basically you started off by saying that if you want to be a writer, then no force on earth should be able to stop you, right? It's not
yeah,
about talking to people and saying things like I have so many ideas or I don't have any ideas. It's about going out there and doing it because that's exactly how I started our band way back in 1993. Like we used to love music and we were a group of friends and we were like it's not enough to just listen to music, we need to play the music we love, and from there we were like now we need to create the music we love. There was
yeah.
no discussion, we didn't have message boards, there was no internet, we didn't sit around with my friends and discuss what we're going to do about it, we just did it. And I always say that the first album of any band in the last like 50, 60 years is basically a vomiting of what's inside you. There's not a lot of thought. If you're really lucky, you get Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses or Led Zepp, the first
Yes.
album, or you get really shitty albums like Metallica's first album, or which is more the norm, by the way. All these great bands,
Yeah.
so many great bands. The first album is not the best. Iron Maiden, Metallica, Megadeth, it's not the
Oh,
best because they're just vomiting, you know? And then it
yeah.
gets better. It gets just like you as a writer keep getting better. So when people come and tell me, "Bhai, I want to learn to play the guitar. What should I do?" I'm like, just the fact that you're asking me means you have no interest. Please go away because I never went to somebody and asked how do I become a musician, how do I learn the guitar. No, you do the hard work yourself, find out, go to the market, walk around, do some research on the internet, then come and tell me some deeper questions, so
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah, so thank you so
Yeah.
much for putting it out there, Joe. Completely agreed. Kaiser, go ahead.
Yeah, so I also found out that you're an avid watcher of anime and you have read a lot of comic books. So is there any particular reason that you chose a superhero theme to write about and not anything else?
I was dumb. Um, I think I'd have sold a lot more books if I'd written a dark fantasy than a than a superhero story.
Uh,
I just love them, and I I think it's an aesthetic thing, right? Like it's like some people just think it's cool for like cowboys riding horses and shooting guns, and some people think it's cool to be like a SWAT team with a riot shield and a shotgun, right? And some people think it's cool like a wizard throwing fireballs at an army, right? And it's
mhm,
just what you think is cool, and it's not meaningful. Like maybe it is, but it's not like there's a right or a wrong answer. And I really, comics are, I think, can have such a huge impact on it, especially when you're young, because those visuals, you don't have to, you can read the text and sort of see it yourself, but sometimes, man, when Jim Starlin draws it, it's different. It hits
mhm.
different, especially when you're first seeing it, right? You see this early, start. So I like the visuals is there were, I mean, I can point to specific comic runs that really like, but this man punching spaceships thing, which is how I describe this series when I'm being silly, but
Mhm.
like this the superpowered guy like flying up and punching like a spaceship, like Nova, like characters like Nova.
Yep.
Jim Starlin had a lot of those space comics like Warlock,
Hmm.
Thanos, really
The
the
Annihilation series.
yes, I read those, the Annihilation series. That was a little later, so that wasn't my
Yeah.
formative years because that's
Okay.
much more recent. I have read those. I like them quite a bit. But the early Nova, which is back in the 80s, Dreadstar, which was a Jim Starlin independent series that I
Death
have it
of
on my
Captain
shelf
Marvel.
actually.
Death of
Yeah,
Captain
Death of
Marvel. That was brilliant.
yeah, Captain. I love the old Captain Marvel, man. There's the guy
Yeah.
flying through space, shooting spaceships with his hands, and like that's just cool to
Cool.
me, and it
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's better or worse. Like I'm also a big fan of like martial arts stuff, like Master of Kung
Mhm.
Fu, like Shang-Chi and like Bruce Lee movies. And I have in the past written books that are much more like that will never see the light of day, and it's just whatever you think is cool. And like I just really like the man punching spaceships thing. And the nice
Mhm.
part is when you have a space opera, there's room for a lot of stuff because you literally have a
Mhm.
very big playing field. Like
Mhm.
I have planet-sized vampiric cephalopods. There's a scene in Shield of the Mothership where like there's a tentacle that's much bigger than any of the ships, just the tip of the tentacle, and
Mm.
like you can't you can do that when you have a space opera, and it's much harder to do if you're writing like a gritty urban fantasy. You just can't have a
Hmm.
planet-sized
Right.
cephalopod in Harry Dresden. because it would
Mhm.
dwarf the Earth, but I can do it. So it just gives you a bigger stage, which I think is cool. It's not necessary. You can write great stories without it, but I like it.
No, I
So
think
I
it's
yeah,
fantastic because sorry, I've just to add because I think it's a very fresh approach. You could have gone grim dark and whatnot, but I love the fact that you know it's so light, it's so refreshing. I've never read a book like this, which is I think one of the things that writers look for. Like, do I have a fresh take on something? So I yes, we've read stuff like Invincible, we've seen stuff like Star Trek Deep Space Nine, but we haven't really seen something where you put it all together the way you have. And I thought that was just brilliant.
thank you. Yeah, it is taking a lot of stuff that I love and smashing it together, right? Like you could easily imagine this whole series without the kaiju, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
but but
yeah,
then I was like, why not have kaiju in
yeah.
it? I
Absolutely,
love
Mhm.
Godzilla
absolutely,
movies,
absolutely.
right? So I threw kaiju in there, and then
But I
as long
think
as
Joe,
it's
but I think the more I'm getting older, I think that's what everybody does. I think everybody puts
yeah,
things together they love. Newton loved gravity.
Yeah.
Einstein loved you know time and space. He was certainly
yeah,
lazy. So so people basically, I refute the theory that people create something from nothing. That's just a lie. If somebody claims it, they don't know what they're talking about. You are a product of everything that's going
yeah,
around you, and you will gravitate towards things that you like, right? So these are the things that you liked, especially in terms of storytelling. There's a story that you wanted to tell. I think that's very important. And another thing I was just pointing out to Kaiser yesterday. Kaiser, by the way, has this show called Anime Quest, where he sometimes brings me in as a guest host. And we and I was telling him that you're a big fan of anime. You put me onto Tower of God, and he was telling me that he got a lot of anime influences in the first two books of the Hybrid
yeah,
Helix, and I
yeah,
was like, you
yeah.
will, because Joe is a big anime
Oh,
fan. Sanderson, the entire Mistborn is basically Vin and the others. They're flying like the people in Attack on Titan. That's what I see when I read Mistborn. I don't know if you've seen Attack on
yeah,
Titan, Joe. It's brilliant,
yeah.
and you
I've
have
read
right.
it. I
So
haven't seen it. I've read the manga.
oh,
I have not seen
oh,
the anime.
dude, you gotta watch it. It is
Yeah,
insane. It's insane. And then, of course, when you read the Stormlight Archives, their entire getup is anime. It's like Final
yeah,
Fantasy VII, you know, the big shard plates and the shard swords. So
yeah.
people
I
who are
was
writing
influenced a
now,
lot by Dragon Ball.
yeah, exactly, Dragon Ball. So
Big
you will
Dragon
be
Ball.
influenced.
Big
Yeah.
Dragon Ball Z. Yeah, yeah. And you can see. I'm sure you can see a lot of Dragon Ball Z in Wistful
Yep.
Ascending.
Yep.
But that's I'm not hiding it. Like
No, no,
that's
no, no.
that's fair.
I'm proud of wearing my
Yeah,
influences. In fact, the
yeah,
film that
yeah, yeah.
I'm working on right now.
Right.
I've snuck in 2, 3 anime style sequences, very, very tiny anime style sequences because I don't have the budget. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's gonna happen. We're gonna see more of those. So, Kaiser, please continue.
Yeah, so I don't know why, Joe, you're not getting more attention that you deserve. I don't know why you're not blowing up. So because sometimes writers, they mainly focus on the writing part, and they cannot get the time or energy to focus on the promotion part. So do you face any challenge in promoting your books out there, that might have gotten you more attention than and made you a mainstream writer?
Let me preface whatever Joe says by saying Joe does not promote his books at all. He doesn't do it
Oh,
at all. All right, Joe, go.
I'm here. I don't know that I like. Okay, I think it's just a matter of skill sets, right? Like I just don't know. I don't know what I should be doing to promote them better. I'm sure there are things that but like being good at promoting books is a skill set and a
yep.
knowledge base, and I just don't really have it. And should I work on that more? I guess I should. But then it comes to a point where it's like, well, I could spend like a lot of time trying to master advertising, or I could write the next book. And
Mhm.
I personally am not that interested. Nothing against people who are good at advertising. That's a wonderful thing. I'm not like morally against promotion, right? I know people
Mhm.
who are. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I just it's always no, I'm going to write the next book because that's what I care about.
Mhm.
I would be much happier if I was in a regular publisher situation. The covers are interesting too because like I am not good at like picking. Like I picked Chris McGrath. Everyone loves Chris McGrath. I think he's great, but like the early like the typography, figuring out which typography works better and stuff. I'm terrible at that. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm terrible at like finding some other artist, being like, okay, that person could make a really good cover for me for like a quarter the price. I know other people who I know other indie authors who like every other book has a who's a new artist, and they're all phenomenal. And I'm like, where did you find these guys? And I'll go through and I just but it's a skill, right? Like there's a reason that publishing houses hire I forget what they call it, like an art lead, like an art
Yeah.
director for they have art directors. That's a real ability. Like some indie authors are also art directors and they're good at it. I am not. I recognize that. I'm not. I don't have an eye for it. Like I'll
Mhm.
look at some like stuff and I'm like, this looks great. And my friends will be like, Joe, that's terrible. Right. Like the
Mhm.
graphic design, right? Everyone says it. Shakib, did I send you the Prey of Angels with the cover that I made? Like the almost hand drawn
Yes,
cover.
yes, yes,
I
yes,
love
yes.
that cover. I think that looks fantastic. I would absolutely 100% sell my books with that. And everyone tells me that it's awful, right? I made it myself. I only put it on the arc because it's going to
Yeah.
people who know that's not the real cover. They're not judging the cover. So it's a skill set. I don't have it. Like I'm not good at that. So I don't know.
So if you
Uh,
become really popular and become a mainstream writer and earn, a lot of money, would you quit your current full-time job and become a full-time author?
I mean, that's the dream, but it would take a lot.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I live in an expensive place, and I've got kids with some expensive needs, and
Mhm.
America is a difficult place, right? Like like if you want health insurance,
Yeah.
we don't have government health care. You're kind of screwed. You have to
Mhm.
pay for it out of pocket. So it would take, I mean, I would be very happy to be a full-time writer. Much more feasible. So I'm 55, right? Like if I never make money selling books, I can retire probably at like 65, 66, 64, something like that. If I could
Mhm.
make a decent amount of money selling books, I could retire maybe a couple years early and start writing full, because I plan to just keep doing this. Like I'm
Okay.
not saying the Hybrid Helix will go on forever, although it kind of could. I could finish the series at 25 books and I could write like more stories in the setting or with the characters that sort of after the main story ends. I could keep going or write other
Mhm.
things because I write other stuff. Partial Function. I wrote a fantasy novel, The Grim Dwarf, which is another fantasy novel. I could write more of that. I think I would have fun with that. Different vibes, but I enjoy all those things. Shakib, I had some ideas for how to extend the tentacle guy, right? I had ideas for ways to make that into a bigger thing. I'm not saying that's a high priority, but it's fun to flex these different muscles. I really want to write. I had a story that's it's similar to Solar, the film, and the feeling it gave me. And I really want to like get back to that and like fill that out one of these days. This loyalty between like friends or brothers that you get from that film. So I'd love to, but will it happen? Probably not. But whatever. I don't
No,
want to say it.
absolutely.
Probably not.
No, no,
It,
no,
it
it
could.
will
It
happen,
could.
Joe. It will that that shouldn't be the yardstick because you're well set. Whatever you're doing, you have a good job, you have a good family,
Yeah.
you live in a nice place. So you're already living the dream in the sense that you're set up nicely and you're
Yeah.
doing the thing that you love. No one's stopping you. No one's saying you
Yeah.
can't do it. You're doing it. You're publishing it. You're working with the best cover artist, one of the best cover artists, Chris
Yeah.
McGrath. By the way, Kaiser, Chris McGrath is the guy who does the Dresden covers.
Yeah.
Just for your
Oh
information.
wow.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Joe is working with the best. So
If
so
you
you're
hold them up side
doing
by side, you can see it.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So
You just gotta.
Wow.
you're getting good stuff out there, and
Oh
my
yeah.
philosophy in life has been that I never wanted to be a full-time musician, Joe. Even though my band is pretty big in Bangladesh, because I never wanted it to be at the whim and dictates of what other people feel. You know, so so I was just talking to my guitarist yesterday, basically because I was working on my film for the last year. My band has been on a hiatus, and that's fine with my band. We're all like this. They're like, cool, take your time with the film, no problem. So now we're just getting back together again, and we're gonna start work on the next
Oh
album after Ramzan is over. And I was
yeah.
just talking to him, and he was like, "Oh, we're losers. We're not doing anything." And I'm like, "No, no, Farhan. His name is Farhan. No, no, we're not losers. Look at the life you have now. Like he's got a kid, he's got a wife, he's doing really well in his life." And I'm like, and we both come from very humble backgrounds, like average middle class backgrounds. And I was like, Farhan, go back 20 years, and if you could write on a page that this is the kind of life I want, this is the life you would have written.
Oh
The life you're leading
Mm.
right now, you would have written this is the kind of life I want. That's exactly what we're doing. We take out the band is this really cool toy that we have. When we feel like playing with it, we take it out of the closet, we play with it, and then we put it back when we have other things to do. And we have a great life. So I think that's another way of looking at what we do in life, about our hobbies. And I've always said my band has been an expensive hobby, and I think the same goes for your writing as well. You spend money on it. Hopefully, one day you'll make a lot of money back,
Right,
but that's
right.
not why you're writing. You're
No.
writing
Mm.
because you can't
Look,
control it. You have to do
I mean,
it. You're leaving a
look
legacy.
look at the covers on the screen, right? That's all my
Yes.
stuff. I got 10 books on Amazon. I have friends
Yeah.
all over the world because of writing.
Yeah.
Literally, like look who I'm talking to, right? Like right here, right here. Like this is fantastic. If it never gets better than this, I will die a happy man. I mean, I
And
hope
we
it gets better
always,
than this, but even
it
if it
will,
doesn't,
Joe. It will, because we
well,
need to manifest. We need to believe it's going to
yeah,
get better. It will get better. And I
yeah.
never imagined, Kaiser, that I'll be going to New York to visit my friends and I'll see Joe. That was like the one of the best times I had. We hung out for like 4 hours. We walked around Manhattan. It was just brilliant. And
Yeah, that was a good time.
I was a little worried that Joe might be one of those new age New Yorkers. Don't smoke; it's bad for you. But I smoked and he said nothing, so that was nice. so So it was great, Joe. It was a great day. It was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
So yes,
I
so
might, you
I
know,
think that's a
20
great
years, 20
philosophy.
years ago, I might have said that, but I've mellowed.
Thank God, I
I've,
know you now.
yeah,
But
yeah.
but Shakib bhai, I never asked you, how did you discover Joe's books?
This is one of those, like if you really, I, the universe is filled with coincidences which are strange and true. I don't know how it happens. I look for a lot of books on Amazon, on Kindle, and because of the kind of books that I love, it just manifested wistful ascending. It just came up. Nobody told me, nobody said anything about it. The cover looked interesting, the blurb looked very interesting. Oh wow, a sentient space station, a superhero doing a blue collar job. Let me read that. Literally, that's how I found Joe Byrne. And then I tweeted about it on X, and then he kindly responded. It
Yeah.
literally went on from there. And Joe noticed, yeah, Joe actually made this connection happen because Joe
Mm-hmm.
noticed that there's a Bangladeshi flag on my Twitter handle, X handle.
Mm.
So he noticed that, and he wrote back that I noticed that you're from Bangladesh. My wife is also from
Yeah, yeah,
Bangladesh.
yeah,
So
yeah.
literally, it started from that.
So there's always like, okay, so I'm always happy to have any readers, of course, but like there's always a little extra special when I get, if I could get like people from India, because I was largely inspired by like Telugu cinema. It was a big inspiration for the books, or from Bangladesh because it's my wife's
Mm-hmm.
people. So that always, it's like extra cool, So it's like, oh, and I'm like, honey, guess what, So that was extra good. And Abdullah is asking in comments if I listen to any of Shakiba, and I have. He's wonderful stuff. Um, I did listen. I finally got him to send me a link on Spotify. I was like, oh, this is good. So yes, I have.
Thank you,
Yes, I
thank you,
have.
thank you.
Yeah, yeah, good stuff. I have no musical ability whatsoever, so that's not my thing. But yeah, no,
So,
that was a good
Kaisa,
time.
before you throw some other questions, I have one
Mm-hmm.
thing I wanted to ask Joe about. This is in no way or form a criticism. This is just something I wanted your take on it. So, one of the reasons I love Dresden Files or Harry Potter is there's this intense relationship between certain characters. For example, in Dresden, it's between Dresden and Michael Carpenter, who's not a book regular, but Michael Carpenter is one of the Knights of Christ, I think, and they have this wonderful friendship relationship, and Dresden has this kind of relationship with a lady cop. I forgot her name. They're
Murphy.
very tight. So there are these characters, and you can see the depth of emotion between Dresden and these characters that surround him. If you go to Harry Potter, obviously the big three: Harry, Ron, and Hermione. So if you ask me who are these people in Wistful Ascending, I'm at a loss. Like who are the Hermione and Ron to Rohan? I'm not sure. Who's the Michael Carpenter in Rohan's life? I'm not sure. So while I love the banter and camaraderie and the relationships that Rohan has with his cast of characters, and I love those characters, love spending time with them, but I felt even after 9 books, sorry, 8 books, I don't feel that strong relationship between any of them. Is that by design? Is that the way you like to portray these relationships, or is that something you never even considered? Again, not a criticism, just something I observed.
I don't know if I have considered it. I mean, I always think of Wei Lee as being his foil or best friend
Best
or his
friend.
Michael Carpenter. Yeah, I mean, she's not in every book, but I mean, she's a lot in Blood Reunion a ton. So I've just read that book again because of the
Okay.
audio.
Yeah.
Um, so I think of Wei Li as that, and then Tamara is his sort of emotional anchor, but it's not on the page a ton because what does it mean to have an emotional anchor like that? It's like, they go for picnics and they have a
Yeah.
lot of bonding time, but you're not
And I
not
love those
action.
moments. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think you would love them if they took up half the book.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I
Right,
wouldn't.
right. Like it has to be a dribble of that, and then yeah. So maybe I don't know. They're his. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah. I think Whaley could be up there, but I feel there's still too much of a wall between them. Like, you know how you go through something together, like something really big or something
Mm,
traumatic that breaks down certain walls, right? There was a chance of that when Whaley, I think when Whaley gained some new abilities in the last book, not
yeah,
this one,
and
Shield of
suppression of powers.
yeah, suppression of powers,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
She got it.
maybe
Yeah,
maybe it could have happened then, but I still feel like there's too much of a formality between them. That's my impression. I'm just telling you my impression. And
yeah.
I'm not
Part of
saying this
that's just
takes
who
away
she
from the
is.
books. It's just, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I don't think
yeah,
she's the kind of person
yeah.
who would get that close, right?
I mean,
But I love,
Katya and he are bonding, but she doesn't appear very much in Prey of Angels for reasons. Um, yeah, I don't know. My intention is that he's got good. You
yeah.
should have the feeling that he's got good friends, but it is still Rohan's story.
So I
Um,
kind of got the
yeah.
impression, Joe. I got the impression, and this is all in my head. All right. I got
Oh,
the impression that
tell me.
because of all the things he's been through and all the things he's done while he
Yeah,
was working with Hyperion and whatnot, he kind of keeps everybody at slightly a distance.
yeah,
That's the feeling that I got. You know,
yeah.
that which for some reason Dresden doesn't. I don't know why he doesn't. Because probably
Okay.
he hasn't gone through what Rohan has gone through, right? When we start life with Dresden.
Dresden doesn't have the burden of guilt.
Yes, exactly,
He
exactly.
has at most he's got this burden of like responsibility where Dresden, especially you see, I don't know if you've read 12, you haven't read 12 months yet, have you? Or have you?
No, I
The newest
refuse to
one, the
read
one that
any
just came
new
out.
ones. I refuse. I'll wait
Oh,
till
okay,
it's
okay,
finished.
okay. Okay, okay. You definitely get the sense that Dresden has this burden where he's like, I couldn't save everybody and I feel bad about that.
Yeah,
Okay. But Rohan has, I have actually committed genocide.
right, exactly.
Right, right. I have
Mm,
actually done really horrific things. And at the time, it seemed like the only way to go, but still, I have actually done horrific things. And to me, that's a difference. He's not Dresden. And he's also starting much older and more mature than Dresden. He has this huge career, military career behind him when book one starts, which was very deliberate. I don't want to
yes.
write those stories. I don't want to write the story of him, waking up in pools of blood like he does in Shadow of Hyperion. Like, I mean, I don't want to write those books where he's
Mm,
lost and doing
mm.
terrible things. Like people are like, oh, you're gonna write a. Everyone, and it's lovely that people want to hear those stories, right? So I'm like, oh, you're gonna tell the story of him in the military? Like, never. Like, I'm never gonna write a. You may be a short story, 3,000 words or like a snippet, but
No,
I'm never gonna
I
write
think
like, oh,
what you mean is right now you have no intention of writing it, but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like
Well,
after you finish the series, you might reconsider.
but the point
Definitely.
is, like he's actually done horrible
Yeah.
things and
Yes.
this is about living and how do you live with yourself having done horrible things, because wallowing in guilt and just like being self-destructive doesn't help anybody.
No.
And he could have probably done that, and maybe he did. Maybe I never really I never had a full timeline. Maybe he
Mm,
spent 6 months like just drinking and not showering and like
mm,
holed up in on a beach somewhere and just totally like just feeling horrible. I don't know.
mm,
Maybe he
mm,
did. Maybe he
mm.
didn't. It doesn't matter, right? But the point is, by the time we get to Wistful Ascending, he said, you know what? That's not going to work. So how do you do? What do you do? You've done terrible things. How do you move forward? How do you progress with your life? Well, don't do any more bad things. Step one, right? Step one. Don't do any more bad things, right? So that's why Wistful
Mm,
Ascending. He's like,
mm,
nah, I don't want to murder anybody. Right?
mm.
Like, let's just not do more murder. Like, step one, like no more, right? And he tries really hard and he fails to not murder
Yeah.
anyone in that book, right? So like even
Yeah.
that it doesn't work. But then it's like, okay, get back on the horse. Let's like that those cartoons where it's like days since accident, and they have like a
Yes,
sign, and there's this very
yes.
sad person taking the number down and putting like a zero up.
Zero.
I always feel like these books should have like a days since murder, like 42 days and he zero, because something happened. So he's not Dresden in that way. He really is. And maybe maybe unintentionally I did make him standoffish in that way. Although I
Yeah,
do get the
that's
feeling that he draws strength from Tamara, but he also doesn't necessarily want to completely open up, because if he really talks about all, he doesn't really want to. Does she want to hear the story of what happened on Ptolemaea? Like, I don't think anyone's going to
no.
like, no one. He
Yeah.
doesn't want to tell that story, and he
Yeah.
doesn't want her to hear it. He doesn't want to hide it, but he doesn't want to broadcast it either. And that, what does that come up in? Is that suppression of power or shield? No, that's suppression of power, where that story comes out a little bit more of it, right? And these people hate him, right? These Ptolemies, and he's like, yeah, you should. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, I don't want to fight you, but I get it. That then. So yeah, maybe he is a little standoffish on purpose.
No, I think what I loved about one of the things I loved about Prayer of Angels is it's the most vulnerable I've seen Rohan. The way he opens up to his mother, and then the way he suffers through PTSD with Tamara.
Yeah.
I thought you wrote it beautifully, especially for
Thank
me
you.
because I hate wallowing in guilt and misery. I thought you handled it with a
Yeah.
very light touch. Didn't dwell a lot on it, but basically it was for me. I know saying these things is not fashionable, but it was big boy stuff. Like, it's somebody who
Yeah.
knows, who's been through a lot. He knows how to handle it. He knows when to open up and when not to open up. So I thought it was handled beautifully. His handling
Thank
of
you.
the grief or PTSD or self-loathing was fantastically done. But yeah, so I just thought I'd bring
Yeah.
this up because maybe it's something you might consider, as because you have so many more books coming up. So it's
There's
just
room
something
for
I've
growth.
noticed. Yeah, I
There's room
just
for growth.
and he's growing
And
beautifully. So, Kaisa,
thank
one of
you.
the things that I'd mentioned to Joe is that
Hmm.
when the book first started out, I thought there were too many jokes. Rohan is a bit too juvenile for my taste. Like, I didn't find some of the jokes funny, which obviously Joe finds funny. But as the books are going, as Rohan is having a reawakening and getting into his new role, I'm seeing lesser of those jokes which he used to make before, and now I find everything he does funny. So either I'm getting used to Rohan or Rohan is getting used to me. Something's happening. So I'm loving this journey. It's just brilliant. So it's something you can look forward to, Kaisar.
So I think this banter, one of the
Yes.
elements that I love about these two books, the dialogues and the banter, is very
Uh,
entertaining. I don't know how Joe does it, because
Thank you.
writing humor is, I consider it one of the difficult things to create, whether on a book or a video or content. So I don't know how you do it, the banter and all that stuff. But it
I don't
also
either.
makes sense. It also makes sense on a thematic level, because from the two books, the two main things that I really enjoyed and noticed is that it's a path of redemption for Rohan, number one, and second, it's at the very core, it's all about his management of his own anger that he was born with, because his power makes him angry. And the banter that makes thing why it made sense for me is, sometimes to manage your anger, you need to be funny intentionally so that you take things lightly. So it all came full circle for me. So was that intentional, Joe, that we have this guy who was born with powers that is bound to make him angry? It's not like you can choose not to be angry, but this power drives anger in you. But at the same time, you have to manage that anger into doing good stuff and not repeat the
Yeah.
mistakes that you've done before. So why choose this
It's
theme? Like, was
it's
that
not just the
intentional?
it's not just the power, right? It's also the side effects, right? The fact that he had like a kind of a crappy childhood and kind of
Yeah.
a crappy upbringing because of the fact that he has powers and because of the demands placed on him by his father. 'Cause don't forget, his father tried to shape him into being a child soldier, right?
Hmm.
So you can imagine that wasn't very pleasant, and you don't get a full view of that ever, but you get glimpses.
Hmm.
So yeah, so the self-deprecating humor is also to me part of how people who are over, they know that they're very confident and they're very sort of powerful and they don't want to be jerks. So
Yeah.
how do you, if you are a competent, powerful person, what's one way you can not be overbearing is a little self-deprecating humor. And I know a lot, and so that's a characteristic. Um, maybe I'm a little overconfident, and the way I try to temper it is with self-deprecating humor. So that's been my
Mhm.
thing. So I'm like, this, I know how to write it because it's what I've been doing my whole life. So because I can be a little arrogant and I know that. So like, how do I
Mhm.
temper it? That's with the jokes. So then I just made Rohan basically a lot like me because it's so much easier to write a character who's a lot like you than it is to write it. Like, I mean, I've never committed genocide, right? Like, it's like, I don't have superpowers and I don't have abs. So like, I'm not exactly like Rohan, but, but in a way, it's a lot about me because why else would I ever, you're not going to, I don't know. I'm not going to, I don't know if I ever persisted through, 8 books or however many books if I wasn't in a way working out some of my own issues. Sometimes
Mhm.
that I don't know if I don't want to say everyone, all the writers do that. I don't want to universalize it, but at least for me.
Mhm.
So the humor is mine. The humor is basically mine, right? Like the different characters tell different kinds of jokes. I wish I could tell you how I came up with the jokes. I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't have. There's no craft to it. There's no like system. I just
Mhm.
write what I think will be funny and I put it on the page. But the advantage, of course, is that like I can when I write a book, it takes 3 months or 2 months, right? It's not so the quips come instantly when you read
Mhm.
them, but I don't have to come up with it instantly. I can take my time and spend 2 days trying to come up with the right line. So it's a lot easier when you've got infinite time to come up with a witty comeback. I'm not
Mhm.
I'm not running for my life coming up with a witty comeback. I'm at a typewriter and I can go away for the weekend and come back with a witty comeback. So
Mhm.
So from
But
here, I want to say, sorry, Kaiser, go ahead, go ahead.
one of my favorite moments from the first book is when Rohan just loses it when he sees that there are certain deaths from the Bear clan, and he just loses it. So I was like, "Whoa, what just happened?" So that was a really really key moment for me to understanding
yeah.
Rohan even better. Okay, so this guy can lose his mind completely. So
Because
that moment was really important.
he talks about the anger and the rage a few times in the book, but I
Mhm.
felt you needed to see it, and you needed to see it push him to do things that you might not think are great. I don't mean, and it's funny when I first wrote that scene, I remember very vividly, like the earliest version. Afterwards, he was much more defensive and much more like I did the right thing. They were terrible people that I killed. And then I realized that that's not the right way to do the character. And by changing that, I feel like I completely changed the series by having him
Mhm.
go, "Oh, I did it," because it's like that. I did it again. It's like an
Mhm.
alcoholic, and you're like sober for 6 months, and you wake up and you're like, I binged. I went to a bar and I lost it, and it's like, all right, what are you gonna do? Set the 0 days since the
Yep.
last murder. Start the count again. Got to start the new clock and go get back on the horse. So yeah. And then what I didn't want to do, and I think people, this is also fun, right? You can subvert expectations because I feel like people, that sets up an expectation where at the end you think he's going to lose it and that's how he's going to lose his temper and that's how he's going to beat the bad guys. Right?
Mhm.
Instead, it's the opposite.
Mhm.
And then in the next book, it doesn't happen. And then the next book, it doesn't happen, right? Like, I think it's easy to get this expectation that that's going to be his like secret weapon. He's going to like lose his temper, and that's how he's going to win all the fights, and that's how every
Mhm.
book's going to end with this big battle. The enemy pushes, and you could have written a series like that, but I'm like, well, this is more fun. Let's subvert that because we've seen that kind of story before. I
Yep.
want to do something different, right? Because I never want to do the same story you read before because I could already read those. There's no point.
I loved how in the first book, after he loses his temper, and in the final fight with his ex-colleagues, he does not lose his temper. He uses his wits to defeat them. So that was really really amazing.
Yeah.
That he decides to, instead of punching through his way using his anger, he decides to calculate and strategize that how to defeat these people who are even more powerful than him.
And if he had lost his temper in that moment, he would have been killed too.
He would have lost. Absolutely,
Right?
absolutely.
They
Yeah,
would have all
yeah.
died, but he would have died with them. And to me, that was what made that book. Like to me, that was like that was the twist that made the book worth writing and worth finishing and worth publishing was when I
Mhm.
figured out how to do that. Like that and then to a lesser extent the way the romance ended. Those are the two
Mhm.
things that I felt really like gave you an idea that would go one way and then it went in a different way and that recontextualizing and then the same thing with the relationship where you sort of expect it to go a certain way and then it doesn't. So
Mhm.
those are the two things that made me happy, and that made me happy to like publish the book, and then I felt satisfied. And not saying it's a perfect book, but I mean, it was, to me, that was enough. Where it's like, okay, this
Mhm.
is worth reading and worth putting out there and putting my name on it, and Chris's artwork and all that. So I'm
Mhm.
glad you enjoyed. That's great.
So, Joe, speaking of anger management, you have this character called the Green, right? He's called the Green,
Yeah.
and
Mm.
he's one of my favorite characters, and I loved
Oh,
seeing
is
him
he?
again in Prayer of Angels. Yeah, because I think you use him just the right amount. That's how you
Oh
should
yeah.
use him. Absolutely love meeting this guy. He's such a tragic character. I just love him. So, you have versions of the Flash, you have versions of Thor, your versions of Aquaman. So when you created this cast of superhero characters on Earth, um, Bright Angel and all the others. Like I really want you to finish these 23 books and then give us some adventures with these people back in the day or whatever, because I think those characters are very interesting. And so, did you like really think deep when coming up with these characters, or were you just like, you know what, I'll just pick and choose whoever I like and put them in there? So, how much thought went into shaping the superhero universe on Earth, the Earth
I
superheroes
mean,
in your books?
I had to, every time I introduce a power, I have to like balance it. Where if that power exists on Earth, it can exist somewhere else, and it's got to have. Oh, Mike, it's got to have like pluses and minuses. In other words, it can't unbalance the balance. There's a balance of power in the galaxy, and if it was anyone had a power set that could disrupt that balance, it would have been disrupted because we have a history going back really millions of years. So like everything has to fit within that sort of context. So it starts for me with the power set, all the possible powers that you can have based on like the magic system and that I have, and then it's like, well, then who, how can I play with that? And the green is just like a hybrid gone to the nth
Hmm.
degree, right? He's just Rohan, but he's constantly at
Hmm.
that
Mhm.
enraged state, right? Permanently. And
Hmm.
that's just the Hulk, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Mhm.
we can admit it, right? It's just the Hulk. It's not even disguised very much. And then the other
No,
characters, and
no. In case
were
Marvel is listening, it can also
yeah,
be Mr. Hyde. So yeah.
yes. Um, and then I just needed to fill out a cat. I wanted more than putting a ton of thought into each of them as individuals, and more it was like I wanted that feeling you get from reading an Avengers comic, where there's like these people in costumes in the background who you barely recognize, but they're there.
Yeah.
It's like this idea of a superhero world, and you don't,
Hmm.
when you read those Avengers comics, usually you don't get a full storyline for.
Hmm.
Sometimes some of those issues would have like 25
Hmm.
in like in an annual or something. You might have a
Hmm.
lot of characters on the page. Most of them don't do anything, right? They're just
No.
back there. Right? X-Men did the same thing. So I was trying to give that feeling that there's all these characters named in there. And I know what their powers are. The Otaku Force 5 have a whole backstory I figured out,
Oh.
Mhm.
years ago. But yeah, it was more to give that sense of fullness. It was more to give the feeling of the superhero setting,
Hmm.
more than each one of them serving a role. So yeah,
No,
yeah,
it's my wish, and I hope that when you finally wind down this entire saga, the Green has a really big role to play towards the end, because I'd love for him to go out with a bang, instead of just sitting in the desert. So I don't know. I don't know if it's gonna happen or not. I don't know which way the
oh,
story's
I
gonna
know,
go, but I would love
I
to
know
see
what's
that.
gonna, I know what's gonna happen to the green. I don't want to tell you.
Oh, okay, cool, cool,
Oh,
cool.
okay.
All right.
I do
Well,
know.
whatever you do, I'm sure I'll enjoy it. So no problems
I
there.
do know for now, but I mean, I have an idea of how the series is going to end. But I mean, I definitely have ideas that I've added to that in the last like 2 or 3 years, like since Wistful Ascending. I didn't have all. So like when I wrote Wistful Ascending, I had an idea for how it would end, but I have changed things because I get ideas and like the books aren't written yet. I can change whatever I want. So, but I think I know what's going to happen to the green, but we'll see. It's going to be late. It's going to be very, very late in the series. Yeah.
And it's
I
like,
mean, I
because
have,
the green is like the atom bomb, right? I have this image in my
yeah,
head where you drop the green on the planet of the Ildrax. You just drop him.
Oh,
It's just
wow.
I visualize it. Like, so.
yeah,
Anyway, just
yeah.
things in my head.
I wanted to
Unleash
write
the green.
yeah. I wanted to write a romance novel where Kid Lightning has retired and he is, living like working as like running like a diner on Staten Island, and he slowly falls in love with a speech therapist, and I want to see if I can pull off an entire romance novel where the male lead can only say Kid Lightning, like his own name.
Wow. Yeah.
And one of these days, and that actually I really am tempted to write one of these. Maybe it's a novella, maybe it's not a whole book, but that is definitely a concrete idea I've had. It
Oh,
wouldn't be an action
fantastic.
story. Yeah.
No, no, I love
But
it. Cozy superhero story. I love it.
I
I
love
love it.
Kid Lightning. I really love that character and everything he goes through.
Yeah.
Yeah, Green does have to say puny God at some point. He could. He runs into enough of these situations where it could come up. That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah,
So
but the
yeah,
thing is, you just mentioned that Rohan had a bad childhood because of his father training him to be a child soldier. But we find out so much more about his father as we read on, and he's not quite what he appears to be at the beginning of the series. I'll just say that.
no one
Um,
is.
yeah, no
All the
one is.
bad guys. That's
So he's
that's
become
a recurring
he's become
theme.
one of my favorite characters. Rohan's father.
Drew.
Yeah. He's one of my favorite
He's
characters. The way
terrible.
you've written him, I love him now. I absolutely love him.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm
Brilliant.
glad.
Um,
Yeah.
so speaking of superheroes, there's something that I've been waiting to talk to you for the last 7 months, Joe. This is
Oh,
Superman.
Superman.
So all three of
Ooh.
us here, Joe, Kaiser, me, we're all Superman fans. A, B, we all love the film that James Gunn did. And Kaiser, as you read the series, basically when Superman came out, it's called James Gunn's Superman. So I tagged Joe and said, "Have you watched James Gunn's Rohan? Have you watched this movie?" Because
Absolutely. Yep.
thematically,
Yep.
the Superman movie, as you read the Rohan series going forward, you'll see that thematically it's so similar. It literally is kindness is the new punch rock. It's about not murdering people. So all the when you have the power to do that, you have the power to do it, but you don't want to do that. So I was so happy when Joe finally watched it. I think
That was good.
a month back he watched it and he
Yeah,
liked it
yeah,
so much
yeah.
that he did a YouTube video on it,
I
which is
did.
absolutely fantastic. So
Thank you.
Joe, I'm first of all glad that you liked it because otherwise I would have felt like an idiot. Um, so,
It's fine.
so that out of the way,
Don't say
um, let me tell you why I appreciated Superman to the level that I did. For example, it was my number one movie of last year, even though One Battle After Another or Sinners are better movies. But for me, my favorite movie of last year was Superman because James Gunn kept saying that this is the hardest movie he's ever done. And after I saw the film, I was like, okay, I get it why it's the hardest film you've done. Is it as good as the first and the last Guardians movie? I don't think so. But is it harder to make? I think so, Joe, because if you want to establish a character as kind, you cannot put him in a situation where he has to murder someone, which
Hmm.
is what we saw in Man of Steel. Basically, he I love Man of Steel. I love Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder put him in a situation where he had to kill someone. There was no way out. It was literally his first day in costume as Superman, and or second day, and he has to put somebody out of their misery. Otherwise, it's the end for the human race. So James Gunn didn't put Superman in that kind of situation, and there was this light tone throughout, which is why I actually, when I first saw it, I was like, I wish there was more action. I wish there were more stakes. But then I told myself, but if there were more stakes, then how do you show kindness? So I don't have the answer to that, Joe. I don't have the answer to that. Uh, but this is another theme that I see repeated in your books, where you don't end with insane bloody climaxes. You have a very interesting climactic battle and whatever, and then you reframe the entire story with one moment or one dialogue, which I love. I absolutely love it. So for you, I know you've done a YouTube video, but can you just like why did you like the movie so much?
Yeah, I love the movie. the, I don't. Okay, so I think Zack Snyder's a wonderful like filmmaker. Like the shots, the angles, all that stuff. Visually, it's great. But he made Superman driven by fear, right? Superman and his father taught him to be driven by fear. His character was and I don't blame Henry Cavill. I don't think he was just reading the script, right? He was afraid of being discovered by the government. He was afraid of being experimented on. He was afraid to show his powers to the point where he let his father die right in front of him. And to me, that was murdering Zod, whatever, that didn't bother me as much as letting his father die during that like tornado or hurricane or whatever, and not saving his own father because he was so scared that he would be discovered. And then when James Gunn goes out and he says like, look, this is a guy who's the most powerful man on earth. He is incredibly tough and everything. he's not scared of anything. He just wants to help people. And he shows no fear in that movie. And to me, the thing that made the movie, and I didn't appreciate it until it was after it was done, was, he has that fight with his clone. The guy turns out to be his clone, and he's getting his butt kicked, and he really gets his ass handed to him in the beginning of the film. Then he comes back later, and he gets healed up. They give him the sunlight and stuff, and he goes right back. And it's kind of, and at first when I saw it, I'm like, how stupid can you be? This guy just beat the crap out of you. But then I'm like, it's because he's fundamentally not afraid. And that lack of fear is what makes him kind. He's not scared of other people. He wants to help them because he cares about them. Because when you take the fear away, all that's what's left is your compassion. And Henry Cavill's Superman, again, not blaming Henry, is driven by fear. And that's why he can't express his compassion, because he's terrified of being discovered by the government or whatever. And that was this, to me, that was such a sad, and I almost want to say pathetic, mean spirit, mean in the sense of low, not in the sense of cruel, take on Superman. And then James Gunn goes and says, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to make him truly not stupid fearless, but like hopeful fearless. Like he just honestly believes he's going to find a way to win, which to me makes sense. If you're that powerful, it makes sense that you would think, I'm going to find a way to win. And so you're not really scared, and it doesn't mean he's ignores risk. He takes care of things, right? But to me, that was beautiful. And the whole movie expressed it at every point. And that scene, man, him running back into that battle, which bothered me when I first saw it, again, because it seemed very dumb. But then afterwards, I'm like, oh, but that's to show how fearless he is and how that makes him strong and how that makes him kind. And to me, that was just like absolutely beautiful. And that's what I try to do with Rohan. Is so strong. There's this scene in one of the later books where he's like, if I wanted to, I could kill everybody around me. Right. But so he's got, it's like, okay, I used to know I used to do a lot of martial arts. I knew a lot of very tough guys. These guys would go into a bar and they just knew in their hearts that if anything went down, they'd be the only ones left standing. And those guys never picked fights because they had no reason to. Like young men pick fights to prove themselves, right? Because they're scared, right? They don't know their place in the pecking order. So they'll pick a fight to try to prove that they belong. They're not the bottom. But if you're just walking to a bar and you're like, I am top of the pecking order, I have no doubts, I have no need to prove it to any, like, to me, that was real strength. And Superman had that in the James Gunn Superman. And Henry Cavill Superman never did. He was scared. And overcoming that fear, I guess, was the storyline that Zack Snyder was trying to put forward. And I get that, but it wasn't as appealing to me, the way it played out. And then, and then having to murder someone at the end. But the fact that he let his father die right in front of him, man, that broke me. I hated that. That's
the one thing I just will never get. I love Man of Steel. I love Henry Cavill. I love Zack Snyder. But that decision, and a lot of people talk about it. They defend it. I get it, but I don't get it. I just if you're Superman, you're not gonna let it happen. It's a simple.
But I feel like James Gunn made a whole movie where he was like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Right. And it wasn't all that went into his film, but he was very clearly not doing that. And I thought it worked beautifully. And it wasn't the greatest film ever made, but it hit its theme. To me, I thought it was phenomenal. It hit that kindness is the new punk rock, strongness gives you space for compassion, doesn't take away from it. That, to me, I loved it. Chef's kiss. I was very pleased with that movie. Yeah.
And what I loved about, because I had read Shield of the Mothership just before this movie came out. So it's not just that thematically things were similar. It's also the fact that literal things were similar. For example, in Shield of the Mothership, I noticed, maybe you wrote it for the first time, or maybe I noticed it for the first time, but Rohan went around checking up on people after something went wrong. Like he literally went around asking, "Are you okay? Can you do you need help?" So literally, I read Shield of the Mothership, then I saw James Gunn's Superman, and I'm seeing Superman going up and asking people after rescuing them, "Are you all right? Can you walk? Is everything okay?" And I was like, wow, this is just too much of a coincidence, like fantastic. So I just hope James Gunn takes a page from your books and show us that Superman is nice because that's his choice, not because it's dumb, which you've proven time and time again, especially with the latest book. Rohan is nice because by choice, that's what he wants to be, but he's not dumb. He
Yeah.
knows he
No.
needs. He does what needs to be done. So, Kaiser, do
Even
you want to add
the
anything?
Yeah,
Yeah,
even
please go
even the
ahead.
monster scene where Superman wanted to save that big monster.
Yes,
I
yes.
found it on the second book where Rohan wanted to save the shark instead of just killing it by taking out the device. So that and the second book came out long way before Superman came. So I could just
Yeah,
see
yeah, yeah,
that that similarity.
yeah, yeah.
And I will
Well,
forever
what?
cherish. I will forever cherish Man of Steel, Zack Snyder's Superman, because it was the first time we saw Superman unleashed on the screen. In the entire
Uh,
film, Joe, I don't know if you remember, no Superman action is in slow motion. Not a single one. It's either in normal speed or
uh,
super speed. Not a single Zack Snyder traditional slow motion shot
I
in
didn't
Superman
remember. Yeah,
action.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I loved seeing the super speed in Superman, which we never seen before.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that was brilliant.
That's
Sorry,
funny.
please go
I
ahead.
didn't. I don't remember that. And I'm a fan of slow mo. My love of South Indian action cinema.
Mm.
They overdo the slow mo, but
Oh
I
yeah.
can't get enough of it. I love it. I know it's terrible, but I love it anyway.
Right,
Uh,
it's the slow mo with the music, right? With that attitude music, it's this whole thing.
I love it. I eat it up. I just do. I don't know. I don't know.
Kaisa, do you have anything to add, or should I move on to the next topic?
Then we can move on to the next topic. We can
All
move on
right,
to the
so
next
I
topic.
just two more things to talk about, then we can call it a night. It's pretty late for Joe. One
I'm good.
is something positive or negative, depending on your viewpoint. The rise of lit RPG. I was there when the Land book came out with Aileron King or whatever the writer's name is, and he was the self-proclaimed inventor of father of lit RPG. I don't know if you know his name, Aileron King, I think his name is. He's got a series called Land, The Land, and then in front of my eyes, all these other series came out: The Wandering Inn, He Who Fights with Monsters, Defiance of the Fall, and all these other fantastic lit RPG series are coming out,
Dungeon Crawler
and they're
Carl.
doing Dungeon Chronicle. I think is the biggest of them all right now. So, how do you view this rise of lit RPG? Why do you think they're so popular right now? Because I bloody love lit RPG. I'm reading He Who Fights with Monsters. I'm reading Defiance of the Fall. I just finished two books of Shami Stovall, The Nexus, which is lit RPG kind of thing. I can't get enough of this power fantasy, power trip, leveling up thing. And somebody, I think, posted on X recently that what lit RPG is to guys is what romantic is for women. So, do you agree with that? I don't know because I haven't read a lot of romanticy. I read Fourth
I
Wing.
haven't either.
I didn't like it. The author is fantastic, Rebecca Yaros. I think her name is that. She's beautiful writer, but didn't the story didn't work for me. There's too much romance, not enough fantasy. So,
Yeah.
how do you view this rise of lit RPG? What do you think? Do you have any thoughts?
Not a ton. I mean, I've listened to Matt Dinneman talk about it, and I've read Dungeon Crawler Carl. I liked him quite a bit, and he just says that his explanation is that lit RPG is popular for the same reason people watch Twitch streams of video games, right? Like
Mhm.
it's like playing, but it's a little less pressure, but you get the same dopamine hits. And every time the character levels up or gains a new power, you get that little surge. And it's not completely different than Cradle, which I know you've
Yes,
read.
exactly.
You know,
Cradle. Progression
I'm a
fantasy.
I like progression more because for me personally, the game mechanics take me out of the story.
I
So
don't
I
need
don't. I'm
them.
not.
I skip.
Yeah. I get it, but the fact that they're in a game bothers me. Like I don't like the setup. It's always like it makes it feel like less real. I mean, I know Dungeon Crawler Carl, the game is very real in the sense that you can really die and everything, but it's the part of the story that I like the least personally. But I like progression fantasy. I mean, I like Cradle. I've read all the I suck those books down like you wouldn't believe. So I think it is a dopamine hit. People like it, and I have a different perspective on it. For me, the question is always like, okay, so we like it when the characters get stronger and defeat their enemies. It's almost like what's the smallest amount of like barrier you can put in their way before it becomes boring? Because if the characters just got infinitely powerful very fast and defeated all the enemies super easily, that's not I feel like we wouldn't like that. So
No.
what's that minimum? There's got to be some minimum of struggle where you're still going to really enjoy it. And in a way, that's kind of what I'm trying to do in the Hybrid Helix. But
Yeah.
also, I'm trying not to escalate Rohan's powers too fast because I just find it's very hard for me to manage the balance of the world. Like if he could get to the point where he was tossing planets around with a flick of his wrist, and it's like, well, why isn't anyone else doing that in the first book? And like that's its own set of complications. So from a world building perspective, I find that hard. But we like when the characters get stronger and overcome and it's just like lit RPG is just being very honest about it. Progression fantasy is very honest about it. And how hard are you going to make it? And then there's a little progression in the Hybrid Helix, that whole Buddhist palm thing, and there's going to be more of that coming up later. He learns tricks, techniques. He powers up,
Yeah, and
and
it's
more of
not
that's
just.
coming.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that about this little
Oh, good.
progression thing that you're doing with
Yeah, yeah,
Rohan,
just a
because
little.
I love solo leveling and all of that. But I would say that modern fantasy or sci-fi, for example, the Hybrid Helix, for example, the Stormlight Archives, it's not just about power evolution. It's also about your personality evolution. I think that also adds a lot. But because if you read Lord of the Rings, for example, Frodo and Sam are Frodo and Sam throughout.
Yeah,
There's not really, like, there's no growth of personality. They're fantastic
yeah,
people in a difficult situation. They're doing the best they
yeah,
can, right? That's
yeah,
how it
yeah.
ends out. Strider just has to accept the fact that I am king. That's it, nothing else. Gandalf, he goes through something which we never see. He was Gandalf the White, sorry, Gray. Then he becomes
Yeah.
a slightly less cool Gandalf the White. But what is the change? We don't know, right? So there's not a lot of uh, character progression or personality progression in old school. By the way, Lord of the Rings is brilliant. I love it. It's my number one
Yeah.
of all things. So not criticizing, I'm observing.
But I guess
Versus
that's the
you have
difference, right?
versus what you're doing now, what Brandon Sanders is doing now, right? So you actually have some sort of progression.
But I guess it's the difference, right? In lit RPG, we don't assume that the character's personality will change with every new power.
No,
We
no, no.
assume that most of the power ups are
Mm.
different than character. They're not going to come with character growth. Whereas I'm trying to pair them a little more, and that's just a stylistic thing, I think. And also, like I said, I don't want to escalate powers too easily because that throws off
Mm.
all my world building.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
but like I think like Will White did a really nice job with that in Cradle. Having this sense where it made sense that you could become this more powerful, and like he became like he outgrew like you outgrow your like region, but there was a reason that everyone was locked inside that region.
Yeah,
He made it make
yeah,
sense to me. I
yeah,
felt
yeah,
I
yeah.
felt satisfied by that. But even in those books, like the character that he doesn't change that much as a person. There's not that much like personal personality growth in that series. There's some. He becomes more confident because he becomes much more powerful.
No, because yeah,
Um,
yeah. I'm saying you usually get either or. Either your personality grows
yeah.
or
Oh,
your powers grow.
oh,
You
oh,
know, that's what I'm
oh.
saying. But with
Uh,
Rohan, you're doing a little
oh,
bit
I'm
of
trying to do
both.
both. Well, he
A little
needs
bit
to
of
be
both.
stronger if he's going to save
Exactly.
everybody, right? That's the whole
Exactly.
thing. Is he
Exactly.
becomes more proactive. He's got
Yeah.
to go out and become because how do you you know how do you make because like what happens when do you have to do the murdering and the genocide? It's when you're not strong enough, and that's your only way out. The only
Yeah.
way to win the situation is to kill, is to do something bad. It means you weren't strong enough, because if you were stronger, you could have found a peaceful way to resolve everything. So what's the
Yes.
solution? You just have to become infinitely strong, and then you can be infinitely good, right? Simple. So that's going to be that kind of has to be Rohan's quest, because I made him smart. So he's a smart guy. He's going to figure that out. So he has, I'm not saying he's ever going to become infinitely powerful, but that's the goal, right? Like, if he's strong enough, then he can be nice to everybody, because why
No,
not?
I absolutely love Will White, and I absolutely love Cradle,
Yeah.
except the last book. If I ever meet Will White, I'll do the cardinal sin of telling him, dude, I love your books. Please rewrite the last one. I don't think you were in sound mind and body when you wrote that one, because things don't make sense, Joe. Things don't make sense in the last book. I don't know if you remember this, a sudden fight, massive 500-page fight between our heroes and these two characters who come from nowhere, and after the fight they again go nowhere. So I don't know why there was this 500-page fight sequence, and the ending, I didn't like the ending at all. Anyway, less said about the last book the better. The rest of the series, chef's kiss, too good. I think something's wrong with Kaiser. He's not coming back. Has he messaged me? Let me just check. Is there a message? No. I think just something went wrong. He'll be back soon. Doesn't matter. We're towards the end of the show, anyways. The last thing I want to talk about, I want to get your take, Joe, on this recent. Every 2 days there's a controversy on X. So two things. First is something very silly. Apparently, you don't need to read books to be a good writer, and apparently, people are fighting about it. So, please tell me your obvious common sense thoughts on this.
I have to think that people are saying some of this stuff just to be controversial for its own sake.
Yeah.
Someone's like, you have to read at least 25 books a year to be able to write good books. Well, that's clearly not true. There's plenty of writers, you know, and like, is there a number of books you have to have read in your life? Like, I'm sure, like, I don't, well, actually, I've been reading more books lately. I've gotten back into it, but I mean, I had periods in my life where I wasn't reading many books. No one has a number, right? No one has a no one can say, you read, if you read 16 books a year, you can be a great writer, but 15, no, right? That doesn't make any sense, right? Like what are you reading too? Like if you read 25 books a year, but they're very formulaic, like they're really all the same, right? Which is nothing wrong with that. If that's what you like to read, that's what you like. I have no problem with people reading like pulp stuff or romance, whatever stuff that like but then how does the 25th do something different for you than the 16th and the 12th didn't, right? So it's just stupid. I do think if you don't consume very few people can become good storytellers without consuming stories. I
Yeah.
think you could probably be a pretty decent writer if you really learned how to write and you watched a lot of movies and you really thought about them analytically and critically and you understood what made them work. And you probably would have had to have read some books, I imagine. I don't know how else you'd write a book if you really never read one, right? Or at least read 50 in your life. Doesn't mean you're reading them all the time. I mean, I've read a lot fewer novels, I think, than a lot of my peers in terms of other writers my age, because I've read a lot of comics.
Yeah.
And I've read a lot of books, but I mean, I've read a lot, and I never counted. I was never because we grew up in a different era. We weren't on Goodreads with I read 72 books this year. Like I had never in my life have I had a year where I knew how many books I read. Like that just I mean, I could have maybe figured it out, like gone through my shelves, but I had no idea. You just read. I read every chance I had, and I read a lot of comics. I probably read more I probably spent more hours. So it was just stupid. This whole Twitter thing was. I think it's people trying to raise, it's like I've done it myself. I've raised huge arguments on Twitter that I've started saying something dumb, which is about, I can't believe people skip prologues. And I started one of the times that went through Twitter, I actually kicked it off. I think it was 23 or early 24. I can't remember, but, I do it because I think it's kind of fun. And if they're just trolling a little bit, it's fine. But someone is like, you have to read 25 books a year. That's just obviously stupid. And I know people who are writers who are well regarded who don't read very much. I think they used to. It's dumb. It's dumb. But if you read a book written by someone who's really never read a book or many books, they're usually really bad. They don't really understand how books work. There's something you've got to figure out. You've got to. I don't. If you haven't read 50 or 100 books, I don't know if you really can write one. But that can be accumulated over. Most of us have read 50. I mean, if you think about all high school and you've read books. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also don't know if you've never read a book. I don't know why you'd be interested in writing one. Like you clearly don't like books that much. Like that seems really weird. Like, do you think it's easy? Because it's not that easy. I don't know.
So the last stupid controversy, but it's not stupid because I think people really believe what they're saying. Todd McFarlane recently, I think a clip went viral that he can get his dog to write something if it's drawn by a great artist, basically. So, and I weighed in my two bits. My point is, there has to be a good story, otherwise, you're never going to go back to it. It doesn't matter how great the art is. So, where do you stand on story versus art? For me, separating story and art in comics is like separating the Beatles. You cannot have the Beatles without all four of them working together. So it's just stupid. So what do you think?
Okay. I think his original tweet was that I could have my dog write it and I could still sell 1 million copies if the right artist.
Hmm.
And that might be true because you can sell comics with splash pages and the
Hmm.
cover and the artwork.
Hmm.
And especially Todd McFarlane is, if he's thinking about the comic book climate from the 90s, that was even more true. You
Hmm.
could sell a lot of comics just on good art. So if
Hmm.
he's talking about I can make a great comic, that's different than I can sell a million copies, right? Like those
That's
are
very
different
interesting.
claims. But if
Yes.
you say I can make a great comic that people will remember, right? Then I think you absolutely need a great story. And it absolutely has to be paired with with art that does the story justice,
Yeah.
which may or may not be flashy art, but it can't be really bad,
Yeah.
right? But it has to be the right kind of art. Because for the story, which isn't just, it's not like art is just better or just worse, right? There's different styles. So that's my take. But I think he's probably right that if you had a great story and terrible art, you can't sell, right? Because how are you going to advertise that? It's much harder
True.
to prove you
True.
have a good story in a comic. I don't know what you would show people, but if you have great art in a comic, you can put some of those images in an ad, and people will get super excited and they'll buy at least the first issue, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
from a sales perspective, I might be wrong about what he said. I think that's what he said. I remember thinking that at the time, but I'm not 100%. But yeah, it's like indie books, right? Like the best indie book out there is probably one none of us have ever heard of. Just statistically, there's a pretty good chance that the best indie book or the best book that was written last year, the best fantasy book, has like 7 reviews
Hmm.
and was read by like the author's mom and has a cover that was like hand drawn by their toddler. You know what I mean? Like maybe not, but like you just because how do you get people to start reading it and like tell all their friends, right? It's like it's very difficult. And the same thing I think with a really well written comic with not good art,
Hmm.
right? Like no one's gonna know, right? Unless with sometimes it works, right? Like One Punch Man. Did you ever see One Punch Man the original,
No, I saw
the webtoon?
the. No, no, no. I haven't seen that.
Okay, so it was originally a webtoon that the writer drew himself, and it's comically bad. Like it's so bad, it's funny, right? Like, but not intentionally funny. It's like if you or I drew a comic.
Hmm.
Can you draw? I can't draw. Like imagine, like almost like stick figure level, right? And the ones you see now are were they someone took the stories and put real art to them, totally different. Now they look amazing. But the original webtoon, which I have read back in the day, but it was such a cool story. One Punch Man's a weird thing. Anyway, it's not the point. I love One Punch Man, but that's my take on Todd McFarlane. And he knows something about selling comics.
Yeah.
The guy has
True.
sold a lot of comics.
True. True. That's
But I
true.
feel like that attitude was bad for the comics industry, and this is the problem, right? Because you have a bunch of guys making comics where they're like, okay, we just have to get like really flashy, really cool artwork, and we can sell a whole bunch of comics, and it doesn't really matter what the writers are like. And you had a whole bunch of people over at Image with that same attitude. I think it did damage to the long term health of the comic book industry
Mm.
because they did that, right? They made comics that were very flashy, they're very cool looking. A lot of them couldn't continue past 3 or 4 issues because they didn't really have a story. They didn't really know what they were doing, like the Pit, which was beautiful. The Pit was, but there was no actual story there, right? Nothing that didn't go anywhere. And those guys couldn't meet deadlines. And I think overall they had a lot of fans that got really excited about comics, and then they broke their hearts. It's only so many times a medium can break your heart before you leave the medium. And I
I
think
was
they,
never a yeah I was never a fan of these flashy artists, but I respect them
oh
because they're really
yeah,
great and obviously they're great and they added a
oh
lot to the art styles.
oh
But I was
yeah,
never a fan
yeah.
of Todd McFarlane. I was never a fan of. I think Liefeld
Uh,
is doesn't have much talent. I don't think he's very talented beyond a
he's
few
not.
stylistic things that he copies over and over again. I
Yeah,
think of the three of them, probably McFarlane added a lot of new form to comic art. I think Jim Lee is really good. But
yeah,
again, I think it's a bit too typed. I think John Byrne kicks all of their asses. Um,
yeah.
I'm more of a I don't like flash. I like more substantial art.
Uh,
I love weird art. I love Steve Bissett. I love John Byrne. I love Jack Kirby. Everybody loves Jack Kirby. Uh, I love so many people. I love the people who used to draw Legion of Superheroes, Steve Lytle, and so many other people. Um,
Yeah,
uh, but Steve Bissett is amazing. Like I think the Swamp Thing run of Alan Moore and Steve Bissett, I think
yeah,
that is one of the greatest runs ever in comics, and that is
yeah.
my favorite Alan Moore run. Yeah, you can have your Watchmen, you can have everything. I think Swamp Thing was Alan Moore at his best. It was so good. Um, so we're at the end of the show, Joe. We're gonna say goodbye in just a bit, unless Kaiser has something to say. Kaiser, do you have any last minute questions or comments that you want to throw at Joe?
No, I had a lot of questions, but I'm going to save this for the next time Joe comes on the show. But one last question, Joe. Among all
Yes.
your 8 books, which one is your personal favorite? Like you feel like, oh, okay, I think this one I have done the perfect job.
That's really hard. I don't know. Oh boy, Mortality Gauntlet, man, which I haven't even written yet, but I know what the structure is, and I think it's going to come out really well. Uh, Prey of Angels. I think I feel like I'm getting better, so I feel each
Hmm.
book is better than the last. Um, I feel like I turned a corner with Eyes of Empire, but then if you get me on a different day, I feel like I turn a corner with all of them. So
Hmm.
that I don't have a good answer. I'm gonna say I'm gonna say Prey
Okay.
of Angels. I'm gonna say they keep getting better. Um,
Okay.
they're not. And I don't always think they get better. Like I don't think Suppression of Power is as good as Eyes of Empire. I think there's a place where I had to pull back a little bit to sort of set things up, and they made that book not as great, right, or not as good because it was setting up things that were going to happen later that I thought were important. And I feel the same way about Return of the Griffin. I felt like it was a step back to set up some things that were going to happen later, thematically and character wise.
Hmm.
Um, but generally speaking, I feel like they keep getting better. The thing that my favorite thing that happened was probably in Shadow of Hyperion. There's this one character arc that I love, and no one else really loves it as much as I do. But the way a certain character develops in that book made me really happy. So I love them all. I love them all.
Okay.
Which character you talking
Um,
about, Joe? Which character?
in Shadow of Hyperion,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hyperion. The way
Oh,
he
okay,
he
okay,
changes in
okay.
in that book, the way the dialogue shifts, depending on what's happening to him. I thought that was great. And I think, but it's one of those things that I don't think it'll make sense until someone rereads it, because your first time through,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
don't know what's
I'm
happening.
planning on a reread. I'm planning on a reread all of them.
Okay.
But Joe, it's interesting. You always complaining about Return of the Griffin, and I'm always fighting you on it.
I'm
That is one of my
sorry.
favorite books. I don't know exactly what's in there that bothers you so much. Uh, uh, because for me, I really enjoyed it. For example, if I compare it to, say, Suppression of Powers is something I didn't really enjoy in this entire list of series books. Uh, but Return of the Griffin, because of this beautiful cast of characters, you gave me a lot of information about Rohan's past. We meet his mother for the first time. So many things happen. So I had a blast reading that book, meeting the Green, and just this enormous kaiju shark coming toward this Godzilla vibes. Like I think a lot of things came together to give me a wild adventure where I can't find any faults that you find. So I don't know what you're talking about versus Suppression of Power, where I felt like you promised me something in Eyes of Empire, and then we took a detour which I didn't enjoy. You know, if I enjoyed the detour, it was very dour, not dour. I think everything was serious. So that's why I didn't like Suppression of Power as much because I felt like
Yeah.
you promised me something in Eyes of Empire, and then you kind of forgot about it.
It's a
So
helix.
I'm not. It's a helix, exactly. The
It's all
turn.
about the helix. It's all about
Yeah.
every time I promise you something, it's going to happen right next. It never happens next.
It,
I'm
and I.
training you. I'm training you to expect it. I'm training you to expect it.
Good
I'm training
answer.
you to these turns. Every time you think something's going to be like, I promise something on Eisenhower. Nope. We got to go back and take a step back because that's the helix.
That's the
So
helix.
that's going to keep. I mean, like there's a big it's like in Shield of the Mothership. There's this big showdown you expect and it never
Yeah,
happens.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's where I
That was
thought I was pushing it in Prey of Angels. That would make me nervous because I pushed it off another book. And but I really wanted to. Like it worked. Like the way the plot all came together for me, it
yeah,
felt I needed one more book to push off that big confrontation. So we'll
yeah,
see. You don't really know until like you don't really know until 20 books are out and someone looks back and has read all 20 or 25 and they go, oh, I get, or they go, you know what, you should have just skipped book 6 or whatever, right? Like you'll get a
No,
consensus
I
then
get it.
once
I
you,
get it because when Order of the Phoenix came out in Harry Potter Order of the Phoenix, I read it the
uh,
first time, and it was the first dark book. Like things were very
uh,
serious in that, and Harry is in the dark. He doesn't know what's going on.
yeah,
He's bitching about it, and I didn't enjoy it as much. But then when
yeah,
I reread it before the next one came out, by that time things had marinated in my head, etc. I loved it. It's one of my favorite books.
yeah,
So I totally get you. So when you go through the journey and then you come back, you find new things. But for me,
yeah,
Joe, I think the most put together book you wrote, in my view, or maybe I would say that's when you clearly leveled up. I would say is Eyes of the Empire. I think Eyes
right.
of Empire. I think that's where I can see you leveling up. I can see a level up in that book. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that book, and we get Katya,
Yes, yes, that was
who
a
I love.
fantastic book.
Yeah, well, major character introduced Kaiser in book 5, so
Mm-hmm.
who's gonna plan to have her around for a while. So have plans for these all these people. But yeah,
I can't wait.
but I know I definitely have readers who have said Suppression Powers is their favorite book. So like
Wow.
people differ on what they like. That Esme Rosaline said that to me, and I was like, really? Okay, because it's generally not liked as much, which I understand, right? Again, there were things I was setting up there. I just he had to suffer for the progression. That was my thought process. So
Yeah.
we'll see. But I mean, I feel like with all of these, um, you know, you don't want to, you yeah, you have to sort of at some point look at it in the context of the series. The same thing with Dresden. People look back and they think, oh, the first 3 books weren't that good. You should just start at book 7. Okay, that's an assessment, right? And you may agree or disagree, but like I'm
Disagree
sure I
hard.
want to hear people have the same conversation about my books when 25 comes out, and they'll say, you can skip book, this book, but not that book. And this was my favorite. And people have arguments, and they do the tier rankings, like which are their favorite. Like that's part of the deal. You can't just have every book be equally great. Like that would be too hard.
Mm.
That's
No, you
impossible.
can't. It's not possible. It's not possible.
It's not
That's not
possible. But I'm
possible.
glad you enjoyed any of them, really. That's makes me happy.
No, no, it's my favorite series right now.
Yeah. Thank you.
So people in Bangladesh, people in America, if you're watching the show, you know where to get Joe's books. They're on Amazon, Kindle Unlimited,
They're on
all of those
Amazon.
things. Uh, People in Bangladesh, how do you get these books? Because Kindle books are not available in Bangladesh, but you can order them through this service. We have this innovative service. Let me
Yeah.
just bring it up. So, hold on. Add to stage. So, how to buy Amazon ebook? This is kindlebd.com. Let me bring up the banner.
It's really cool.
Yeah, just 1 second. Where's the
Kindle
banner?
Bangladesh. That's great.
Yeah, so basically, kindlebd.com, it's a service run out of America by a Bangladeshi. He set up this system where you can directly buy books from Kindle officially, but you don't have to use a foreign credit card. You can just use your local MFS Bikash. So you can buy it in Taka, in Bangladeshi currency, but you legally buy a book from Kindle. Let's support our indie writers. Let's support indie authors like Joe. Let's not do piracy because these guys need the money. We need them to keep writing. So buy it legally from Kindle. It's very easy to buy a kindlebd.com. Very simple. If you have any problems, there's a WhatsApp number there. You can contact them. They're very helpful. I have already talked to them. So do that. Let's support
Fantastic.
our indie authors so that we keep getting amazing books from all of them. Let me just take this out right now and bring us all back. There we are. So once again, 1 second. Let me bring up all the books that you've written. 1 second. Yes. There we go. So, Joe, you have given us 8 amazing books. I cannot wait for the next one, Mortality Gauntlet. Yeah, please, we're about to say something. We're about to say something?
No, I'm just no.
Yeah, yeah.
Just
So, thank you so
I
much.
love the spread. I love it makes me tingly. I don't even have it. I don't even have a hard copy of Prey of Angels yet. I just ordered them,
Oh, yeah, I
so I
saw
haven't I
your,
haven't
I
I
saw,
haven't
yeah, somebody, I
Pippin,
think,
Ganesh.
yeah, Ganesh, he got a hard copy.
Yeah.
So it was great to see. It
So
was great
if
to
you
see.
order them in the US, if you order them from Amazon, you can get it in like a day or two. But if I order an author copy, I pay like half, like 40% the price.
Oh,
But it
nice,
takes me
nice.
like 3 weeks to get. So if I'm going to give people books, I'm not going to pay full price, right? I'm going to pay
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
40%, but then I
yeah,
have to wait, which is fine.
yeah,
I'm not upset
yeah,
about it, but so I haven't seen the book yet. But it'll come, and then I can sign them and send it to the people who get the signed copies. There's a unfortunately international shipping is really bad, really expensive. So like
yeah.
shipping
It
them
is.
to
It is.
shipping to Bangladesh is terrible, but like even
Yeah,
shipping to Canada is extremely expensive.
Hmm.
So it's very tough. But people locally, in this within the states, we have a very cheap way to send
yes,
books,
yeah.
media mail. So anyway.
That's
But
okay. We
anyway,
can
thank you
read
guys so
ebooks from
much for.
Bangladesh.
Oh, sorry. Yes,
We
get
can read,
ebooks.
read these books from Bangladesh. So thank you so much for being here, Joe. Kaisa, thank you for
Thank you so
joining
much
me,
for
Joe.
having me, and thank you, Kaiser. It was great to talk and to
Same.
chat, and yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying the books. That's fantastic.
No, thank you for
So
doing what you do. Thank you for existing because
All
I
right.
know it takes a lot of time and energy for doing
Yeah,
what you do. So thank you
it
so
does.
much for that.
Of
yeah, Joe,
course, my
thank you so
pleasure.
much. Have a good
Thank
sleep
you,
and never
Shakib.
stop what you're
Yeah,
doing. Thank you,
I won't.
everybody. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for watching.